My daughter left a note taped to the stainless steel refrigerator I paid for. It read, "I am sick of you, you useless old man. This house is sold. Pack your things and welcome to the trash heap." I did not cry. I did not scream. I simply took a pen from my pocket, flipped the note over and wrote 2 words. Check deed. Then I walked out the door. By the time I woke up the next morning in a suite at the Ritz-Carlton, my phone screen was glowing with 36 missed calls from her. But before I tell you how I brought their world crashing down, let me introduce myself. My name is Grady Whitfield. I am 68 years old, a black man born and raised on the south side of Chicago. For 40 years, I ran a general contracting business. My hands are calloused, my knees ache when it rains, and I prefer flannel shirts to Italian suits. To the world, and specifically to my ungrateful daughter Kendra and her husband Austin, I am just a retired laborer living on a fixed income. A relic. A burden. They see the dust on my boots, but they never bothered to look at the bank statements I keep locked in a safety deposit box. They do not know that I own 3 apartment complexes in the city and a portfolio of blue-chip stocks that would make Austin's jaw hit the floor. I never told them. I wanted them to build their own lives. I wanted them to have character. It appears I failed spectacularly. If you have ever been underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you, hit the like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from, because what happened last Tuesday is a lesson in why you should never bite the hand that secretly feeds you. It was raining that evening, a cold, miserable Chicago rain that seeps into your bones. I had just come back from the cemetery. It was the 3rd anniversary of my wife Esther's death. I had spent the afternoon cleaning the moss off her headstone and talking to her about how much the neighborhood was changing. I felt heavy, carrying the weight of grief and the physical toll of age. All I wanted was a hot shower and the silence of my room. I walked up the driveway of the house in Naperville. It is a beautiful house. 4 bedrooms, brick facade, a manicured lawn. I bought it with cash 10 years ago. I put it in Kendra's name to give her a head start, to give her collateral for her marketing business. It was the greatest gift I could give and the greatest mistake I ever made. I reached for my keys, the brass ones Esther had given me a keychain for. I slid the key into the lock and turned. It stopped. I jiggled it thinking the humidity had swollen the wood. I tried again harder this time. It would not turn. The lock had been changed. I stood there on the porch, water dripping from the brim of my hat, confused. I knocked. No answer. I pounded on the door. Suddenly the window on the 2nd floor slid open. Austin leaned out. He is a white man, 35 years old, with soft hands and a smile that always looks like a sneer. He calls himself a stockbroker, but in 5 years I have never seen him go to an office before noon. "The key does not work, Austin," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let me in. It is freezing out here." Austin laughed. It was a dry, cruel sound. "That is because new keys are for homeowners only, Grady. Guests do not get keys, and uninvited guests stay outside." I wiped the rain from my eyes. "What are you talking about? I live here. Open the door." "Not anymore," he said. He held up a shiny new silver key, dangling it from his finger like a pendulum. "We talked about this. You are cramping our style. Kendra needs the space for her yoga studio. We tried to be nice, but you just would not take the hint. So we helped you out." He wound his arm back and threw the key. I watched it arc through the rain and land somewhere in the thick, thorny bushes bordering the lawn. "Go fetch old man," he said, and slammed the window shut. I stood there staring at the closed window. My blood began to heat up, warming me against the chill. This was the house I bought. These were the people whose bills I secretly paid every month because they spent more on organic groceries than I used to spend on a mortgage. I turned around to look at the garage, hoping the keypad code still worked. That is when I saw it. At the edge of the driveway, right where the garbage truck stops on Wednesdays, sat a pile of black plastic bags. They were soaked with rain. I walked over my boots, squelching in the mud. I untied the knot on the nearest bag. Inside were my shirts. My flannel work shirts, my Sunday suits, my socks, all thrown together in a chaotic mess. In the next bag, my books. In the third, my tool belt, the leather cracked and worn, the belt I had used to build the foundation of this very family. Then the front door opened. Kendra stepped out onto the porch. She stayed under the awning to protect her silk blouse. She is my daughter, my only child. I remember holding her when she fit in the crook of my arm. Now she looked at me with the same expression she uses when she steps in gum on the sidewalk. "Dad, stop rummaging through the trash," she shouted. "The neighbors are watching. You look like a hobo." "Kendra," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Why are my things in the street?" "Because that is where they belong," she snapped. "We told you weeks ago we needed you to move out. You ignored us. You sit in the living room in those dirty work clothes while I am trying to host high-end clients. You smell like old sawdust and cheap aftershave. It is embarrassing." I took a step toward her. "I paid for this house, Kendra. I paid for that blouse you were wearing." "That is ancient history." She waved her hand dismissively. "The deed is in my name. Austin and I checked. Legally, this is my property, and I have decided to sell it. We accepted an offer this morning. The new owners want possession in 30 days, so you need to be gone. Now." She pointed a manicured finger at the bags. "Take your junk and go. Go to a shelter. Go to a motel. I do not care. Just get away from here. You are a useless old man, Grady. You have nothing to offer us anymore." Something inside me snapped. Not a loud snap, but a quiet, final fracture. The cord of unconditional love I had held onto for 32 years severed. I looked at the wet bags. I looked at my daughter, her face twisted in ugly entitlement. I bent down and picked up a frame that had poked through the plastic of one bag. It was a picture of Esther and me on our wedding day. The glass was shattered. Rainwater mixed with the image of her smiling face. I carefully pulled the photo out of the broken frame and put it in my jacket pocket close to my heart. "Is that it?" I asked. "Is that all you have to say to your father?" She crossed her arms. "I left a note on the fridge explaining everything in case you were too senile to understand the conversation. Read it if you want, but do not come inside." I walked past her. She tried to block me, but I am a large man and I moved with a momentum she could not stop. I did not go further than the kitchen. There it was, a yellow sticky note on the stainless steel fridge. "I am sick of you, you useless old man. This house is sold. Pack your things and welcome to the trash heap." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. She had written it in Sharpie, bold and angry. I took a pen from the counter. I flipped the yellow note over. My hand did not shake. I wrote 2 words in capital letters: "Check deed." I stuck the note back on the fridge. I walked back out onto the porch. Austin was standing there now next to Kendra, his arm around her waist, looking like the lord of the manor. "Did you call a cab?" Austin mocked. "Or do you need bus fare?" "I think I have some loose change in my pocket." I ignored him. I pulled out my phone. It is an old model cracked screen, but it has the apps I need. I did not open the regular rideshare option. I scrolled down. I selected Uber Black. 5 minutes later, a sleek black Cadillac Escalade pulled into the driveway. The driver, a man in a sharp suit, stepped out with an umbrella. He walked past Austin and Kendra, ignoring them completely, and held the umbrella over my head. "Mr. Whitfield," the driver said respectfully, "let me get your bags." He picked up the trash bag containing my clothes with as much care as if it were Louis Vuitton luggage. He placed it in the trunk. Austin's mouth hung open. Kendra frowned, confusion clouding her arrogance. "Who is paying for that?" Austin shouted. "We are not paying for that." I stopped with my hand on the door handle of the luxury SUV. I turned to look at them one last time. The rain was falling harder now, washing away the dirt of the day, washing away my obligations to them. "You do not have to worry about money anymore, Austin," I said, "because you will not be seeing any of mine ever again." I got into the car. The heavy door thudded shut, sealing out the noise of the rain and their confused questions. The leather seat was warm. The interior smelled of expensive leather and quiet dignity. "Where to?" Mr. Whitfield, the driver asked. "The Ritz-Carlton," I said, "and take the scenic route. I want to enjoy the view of the city I helped build." As we pulled away, I watched them in the rearview mirror. 2 small, wet figures standing in the driveway of a house they thought they owned. They had no idea that the ground beneath their feet was about to shift. They thought they had kicked a stray dog out into the storm. They did not know they had just declared war on a wolf. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from my bank. The automatic transfer of $5,000 I sent to their joint account every month for expenses was scheduled for tomorrow. I opened the banking app. I tapped cancel. Then I tapped block payee. The war had begun. And unlike them, I was prepared to fight until there was nothing left but the truth. I walked into the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton, dragging a black, heavy-duty garbage bag behind me. The marble floors gleamed under the crystal chandeliers, and the air smelled of fresh lilies and old money. I was soaking wet. My flannel shirt was plastered to my chest, and my work boots left muddy prints with every step. The silence in the lobby was immediate. Conversation stopped. Eyes turned. I could feel their judgment like a physical weight pressing down on my shoulders. A young man at the front desk looked up. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, and his face twisted into a mask of polite disgust as I approached. "Sir, I believe you are in the wrong place," he said before I could even reach the counter. His voice was clipped and cold. "Deliveries are around the back, or perhaps you are looking for the shelter on 5th Street. I stopped. I set the garbage bag down on the pristine floor with a wet thud. I looked him in the eye. "I am not a delivery man, son. I am a guest. I would like a suite, the presidential one if it is available." He let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Sir, please do not make a scene. This is a private establishment. If you do not leave immediately, I will have to call security. You are disturbing our guests." He reached for the phone, his hand hovering over the receiver. He saw a homeless man. He saw a problem to be removed. He did not see the man who had poured the concrete for the foundation of this very building 30 years ago. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I simply reached into the wet pocket of my jacket and pulled out my wallet. It was old leather worn smooth by decades of use. I opened it and pulled out a single card. It was made of black, anodized titanium. It was heavy. I placed it gently on the marble counter. The sound it made was solid, distinctive. It was the American Express Centurion card. The black card. Invitation only. No spending limit. The young man looked at the card. Then he looked at me. His eyes went wide. The arrogance drained from his face, instantly replaced by a pale look of sheer panic. He swallowed hard. He typed something into his computer, his fingers trembling slightly. When he looked up again, his entire demeanor had changed. He looked like he wanted to disappear. "Mr. Whitfield, I apologize profusely. I did not realize. We have the presidential suite available immediately. Allow me to get the manager to escort you personally, and please let us take your luggage." He signaled to a bellhop who rushed over looking confused but obedient. The bellhop picked up my garbage bag with white-gloved hands, treating it as if it contained diamonds. I took my key card. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just nodded. "Thank you, son," I said. "And remember, never judge a book by its cover. You might miss the story of your life." I took the elevator to the top floor, leaving the stunned silence of the lobby behind me. The suite was larger than the first house I bought for Esther. It was quiet. It was safe. But as I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window looking out at the rain-drenched city, I felt colder than I had outside. I had money. I had power. But I had no home. And the daughter I had built my world around had just thrown me away like trash. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. I knew who it was. I had sent a text message the moment I entered the room. I opened the door to find Javon standing there. He is my second cousin's son, but I call him my nephew. He is 28 years old, a genius with computers, and the only family member who never asked me for a dime. He wore a hoodie and carried a backpack that looked like it had been through a war zone. "Uncle Grady," Javon said, stepping inside and giving me a fierce hug. "You look terrible. I got your message. What happened?" I sat down on the velvet sofa and told him everything. I told him about the changed locks, the trash bags in the driveway, the note on the fridge, the way Kendra looked at me with such hatred. Javon listened without interrupting. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. When I finished, he did not offer empty platitudes. He simply opened his backpack and took out a laptop. "I knew they were ungrateful," Javon said, his voice low and angry, "but I did not know they were stupid. Uncle Grady, I have been keeping an eye on things like you asked, just basic monitoring, but after you texted me, I dug deeper. You need to see this." He turned the laptop screen toward me. It was a mess of spreadsheets, bank transfers, and emails. I put on my reading glasses. "What am I looking at, Javon?" "You are looking at Austin. S-Lies," Javon said, pointing to a column of red numbers. "He tells everyone he is a stockbroker, right? He tells Kendra he is managing a high-yield hedge fund. Well, he is managing something, all right. He is managing a disaster." Javon tapped a key. A new window opened showing a trading platform. Austin has not made a single legitimate trade in 3 years, Javon explained. He took the money Kendra gave him, the money you secretly funneled to them, and he put it all into a crypto scam. A pump and dump scheme run by a shell company in the Cayman Islands. He lost everything, Uncle Grady. $200,000. Gone. I felt a knot form in my stomach. $200,000. That was not just money, that was security. That was the future I thought I was helping them build. It gets worse, Javon continued, his voice grim. He tried to win it back. He started borrowing, not from banks. Banks will not touch him with his credit score. He borrowed from private lenders, the kind that charge 50% interest and break legs when you miss a payment. He pulled up a series of encrypted messages. They were threatening, violent. One message read, "You have until Friday, Austin, or we come for the house. The house, my house, the house I put in Kendra S.'s name." He is desperate, Javon said. That is why they kicked you out. They are trying to sell the house fast. They need the cash to pay off the sharks before they show up at the door. He is using Kendra to save his own skin, and she is too blind to see it. She thinks he is a financial genius, I said quietly. She thinks I am the one holding them back. She is about to find out the hard way, Javon said, closing the laptop. Uncle Grady, they are dangerous. Not because they are smart, but because they are cornered. What do you want to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a notification. A new voice message from Kendra. I stared at the phone. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to pretend I never saw it. But I needed to know. I needed to know how far she was willing to go. I pressed play. Kendra S.'s voice filled the luxury suite, shrill and distorted by rage. Dad, do not think you can just wander back here. Austin told me you were lurking around the neighborhood. If you step foot on this property again, I will call the police. I will tell them you are trespassing. I will tell them you are harassing us. I will get a restraining order if I have to. Stay away from us. We do not want you. We do not need you. Just disappear. The message ended. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. She threatened to call the police on her own father, on the man who taught her to ride a bike, on the man who sat by her bed when she had fevers. She chose him. She chose the liar, the gambler, the thief over me. I looked at Javon. He was watching me, waiting for a reaction. He expected me to be hurt, and I was. But the hurt was quickly being replaced by something colder, something harder. It was the resolve of a man who had built skyscrapers from nothing. I was done being the victim. Javon, I said, standing up, open your laptop again. He opened it instantly, his fingers poised over the keyboard. What are we doing, Uncle? We are initiating protocol, Esther, I said. Javon S.'s eyes widened. He knew what that meant. It was the emergency plan Esther and I had come up with years ago in case the worst happened. A plan to liquidate, to protect, to reclaim. Are you sure, Javon asked? Once we start, there is no going back. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. I saw my reflection in the glass. I looked old, tired. But my eyes were clear. She told me to disappear, I said. She told me my place was in the trash. Well, it is time to take out the garbage. I turned back to Javon. Start with the car, I ordered. The Porsche Cayenne. The one Austin drives around town like he is the king of Chicago. The one he tells everyone he bought with his bonus check. Technically, that car belongs to Whitfield Construction, Javon said. A slow smile spreading across his face. It is a company vehicle. You just let him use it. Exactly, I said. And since I am no longer welcome in their home, neither is my property. Report it stolen? Javon asked. No, I said. That is too slow. Call the recovery team. I want it repossessed. Tonight, while they are sleeping. I want Austin to wake up tomorrow morning and find an empty spot in the driveway where his ego used to be. Javon typed furiously. Consider it done. The tow truck is being dispatched now. They will pick it up in 2 hours. Good, I said. And Javon. Yes, Uncle, freeze the credit cards. The emergency cards I gave Kendra. The ones I pay off every month. Cut them off. Done, Javon said, hitting the enter key with a satisfying click. I sat back down. The war had begun. They wanted to play games with my life. They wanted to treat me like a senile old man. They were about to learn that this old man still held the keys to their entire existence. And I was just getting started. The morning sun had barely touched the skyline of Chicago when my phone began to vibrate on the mahogany nightstand of the Ritz-Carlton suite. I was already awake. I have been waking up at 4 in the morning for 40 years to beat the cement trucks to the job site. Old habits do not die just because you are sleeping in Egyptian cotton sheets. I picked up the phone. The caller ID flashed a name I used to associate with Sunday dinners and football games. Austin. I did not answer immediately. I poured myself a cup of black coffee from the silver pot room service had brought up moments ago. I took a sip, letting the bitterness wake up my senses. Then I swiped the green icon and put the phone to my ear. I did not say hello, I just listened. "You old thief," Austin screamed. His voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "You stole it. I know you did. I walked into the garage 5 minutes ago and it is gone. My Porsche is gone. I called the police, Grady. They are on their way. You are going to jail for grand theft auto." I walked over to the window. The city looked peaceful from up here, detached from the chaos I had unleashed down below. "Good morning, Austin," I said calmly. "I hope you slept well. The sofa can be murder on the back." "Do not play games with me," he shouted. He sounded hysterical. "That car was in my garage. It is my property. I have clients to meet today. I have an image to maintain. How am I supposed to show up to a meeting in an Uber? You could take the bus I suggested. It builds character. And as for the police, save your breath. They have already been notified. In fact, if you check the driveway, you will find the repossession order taped to the garage door. It clearly states that the vehicle belonging to Whitfield Construction LLC has been recovered by its rightful owner due to unauthorized use by a non-employee." There was a silence on the other end, a heavy, stunned silence. I could hear him breathing hard, like a man who had just run a marathon only to find out he was running in the wrong direction. "You cannot do this," he hissed. "That was my bonus. You gave that to me." "I loaned it to you, Austin," I corrected him. "I let you drive a company vehicle because you complained that your sedan was not impressive enough for your high finance friends. But company perks are for people who respect the company. And last night you made it very clear what you think of the man who built that company." He started cursing then, vile, ugly words that no son-in-law should ever say to the grandfather of his future children. He called me names that would have made a sailor blush. He threatened to come down to the hotel and drag me out. He threatened to sue me for emotional distress. I let him vent. I let him pour all his toxicity into the receiver. It was validating in a way. It confirmed everything Javon had found. This was not a man who loved my daughter. This was a parasite angry that his host had finally detached itself. When he finally paused for breath, I spoke one last time. "Austin," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "If you ever threaten me again, I will not just take the car. I will take the shirt off your back. I will contact every private lender you owe money to, and I will tell them exactly where to find you. Do not test me." I hung up before he could respond. My hand was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline. It was done. The first strike. I looked at Javon, who was sitting at the dining table nursing a coffee and watching a stream of data on his laptop. He looked up and grinned. "The police report just came in on the scanner," Javon said. "Officers arrived at the residence in Naperville. Complainant Austin Miller reported a stolen vehicle. Officers advised him it was a civil matter involving corporate property and told him to stop wasting police resources. They left 5 minutes ago." I nodded. "Good. Now we wait for the second shoe to drop." It did not take long. Around noon, Javon called me over to the laptop. He had set up a mirror of the credit card alerts for the supplementary cards I had given Kendra. For years I had paid the bill without looking too closely. It was my way of taking care of her. Now I was looking at every transaction with the scrutiny of a forensic accountant. "She is at Le Colonial," Javon said, pointing to the screen. "French-Vietnamese cuisine, high-end, very trendy. I knew the place. It was where Kendra took her biggest clients, the ones she needed to impress to keep her marketing agency afloat. A lunch there for 3 people could easily run $500. She just asked for the check," Javon narrates, watching the real-time data feed. "Here comes the authorization request. On the screen, a notification popped up. Transaction attempt $485.50. Merchant Le Colonial. Card ending in 4098. Status declined. Account frozen." I closed my eyes and pictured the scene. I knew my daughter. I knew how much she valued appearances. She would be sitting there in her designer blazer laughing at a client's joke, projecting the image of the successful self-made woman. The waiter would approach with the leather folder. She would slip the card inside without looking, continuing her conversation, confident in the magic plastic rectangle that had never failed her. The waiter would walk away. A few minutes would pass. Then the waiter would return. He would lean in discreetly, but not discreetly enough. He would whisper that there was a problem with the card. Kendra would laugh it off. A nervous laugh. She would tell him to try it again. It must be a chip error. She would wipe the card on her napkin. The waiter would try again. The machine would beep that terrible rejection sound. I watched the screen. Transaction attempt $485.50. Status declined. Transaction attempt $485.50. Status declined. She is panicking, Javon said quietly. She is trying it 3 times. Imagine the sweat prickling under her silk blouse. Imagine the silence falling over the table, her clients exchanging glances, the illusion of success shattering over a declined lunch bill. What does she do now? Javon asked. I sighed. She does what she always does when she is cornered. She looks for someone else to carry the load. A new transaction appeared on the screen. This one was different. It was from a different bank, completely unrelated to me. She made her assistant pay, Javon said, shaking his head. Look at the metadata. She Venmo requested her junior associate for $500. Subject line: emergency lunch. Will reimburse ASAP. That is a new low, I murmured. Borrowing money from your employees to pay for a client lunch. She has lost her dignity. She lost that when she put your clothes in trash bags, Javon reminded me. He was right. But it still hurt to watch. It hurt to see the child I raised turn into a woman who lived such a fragile, hollow existence. But pain is a teacher, and Kendra had skipped a lot of classes. Today school was in session. 30 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID said Kendra. I let it ring 3 times. 4. I wanted her to sweat. I wanted her to wonder if I was really gone. Finally, I answered. Hello, Daddy. Her voice was unrecognizable from the screeching harpy on the porch last night. It was sweet, soft. It was the voice of the 6-year-old girl who wanted ice cream. It was a performance. Hi, Daddy, I am so glad I caught you. Listen, something so silly just happened. I am at lunch with a huge client and my card just stopped working. I think the bank flagged it for fraud or something. You know how sensitive their systems are. She waited. She expected me to jump in. She expected me to say, oh, honey, I will call them right away. Use the other card. I said nothing. I let the silence stretch out between us, heavy and cold. Daddy, are you there? She sounded a little more desperate now. The sweetness was cracking at the edges. I really need you to call the bank. It is embarrassing. I had to ask Sarah to cover the bill and I need to pay her back before we get back to the office. Can you transfer $2,000 to my checking account just to be safe until you get the card fixed? $2,000, just like that, after telling me I was useless, after throwing me out in the rain. The audacity was breathtaking. There is no fraud alert, Kendra, I said, my voice flat. What do you mean? I mean the card is not broken. It is canceled. I closed the account this morning. Canceled. Her voice rose, losing the fake sweetness. Why would you do that? You know, I use that for business expenses. You know I depend on that. I thought you said I was useless, Kendra, I replied. I thought you said I had nothing to offer you anymore. If I am so useless, then surely my money is useless too. Dad, stop it. This isn't funny. I am in a bind here. Austin is freaking out because his car was stolen, and now this. We are having a really bad day. You need to help us. Need. That word again. Not want, not ask. Need. As if my help was a natural resource she had a right to mine. I helped you for 32 years, Kendra, I said. I helped you with tuition. I helped you with your first car. I helped you buy that house you just kicked me out of. And yesterday you looked me in the eye and told me my place was in the trash. That was just... We were angry, Dad. You know how stress gets to us. We didn't mean it. Just transfer the money and we can talk about this later. Come by the house tonight, we can talk. Come by the house I asked. The house you sold. The house where you changed the locks. We can fix that. Just send the money, please. I looked over at Javon. He was watching me, his face hard. He was my strength when my own resolve wavered. I remembered the rain. I remembered the photo of Esther broken on the pavement. Kendra, I said slowly so she would not miss a single word. You said my place was in the trash. Well, that is where you will find the money. What? What are you talking about? Go look in the black trash bags you left in the driveway, I said. If the garbage truck hasn't come yet, maybe you can find something of value in there. Maybe you can sell my old work boots. Maybe you can pawn my tools. Because that is all you are ever going to get from me again. Dad, wait, do not you dare. I hung up. I stared at the phone. My heart was racing. It felt like I had just cut off a limb, but it was a gangrenous limb one that was poisoning the rest of the body. I had to do it. Did she buy it? Javon asked. I think she is confused, I said. She has never heard me say no. She does not know what no sounds like coming from me. She will learn, Javon said. My phone buzzed again. A text message from Kendra. You are being childish. Sending the money now or I am blocking you. I laughed. A dry, humorless laugh. She was threatening to block me. She still thought she had the power. She still thought her presence in my life was a gift I should pay for. Javon, I said, are we ready for the next step? Javon nodded. He pulled up a document on his screen. It was a legal draft. The nursing home application, he said. I intercepted the email Austin sent to his lawyer friend Miller. They are moving fast, Uncle. They have an appointment tomorrow morning to file for emergency guardianship. They are going to claim you are suffering from rapid onset dementia and are a danger to yourself. They want to lock me away, I said, the reality of it sinking in. They want to put me in a home so they can liquidate my assets without me fighting back. Exactly, Javon said. And since they think you are broke, they picked the cheapest facility in the state, Shady Pines. It has a 1-star rating and 3 lawsuits for neglect pending. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. It was one thing to kick me out. It was another to try and strip me of my freedom, my dignity, my mind. Let them try, I whispered. Let them try to bury me. They are about to find out that I am not a seed. I am a landmine. Get my coat, Javon, I said, standing up. We have an appointment to make. Where are we going? To see an old friend, I said. If they want to play legal games, we need a shark. And I know the biggest shark in Chicago. We walked out of the suite, leaving the luxury behind for the cold reality of the war room. Austin and Kendra thought they were playing checkers with a senile old man. They did not know I had been playing 3-dimensional chess since before they were born. And the next move was going to cost them more than just a lunch bill. It was going to cost them everything. The glow of the laptop screen was the only light in the Ritz-Carlton suite as Javon typed a final command. The image flickered for a second before stabilizing into a crystal-clear, high-definition feed. It was the living room of the house in Naperville. My house. The house I had built with my own hands and paid for with my own sweat. I had installed those cameras years ago, not to spy on my family, but to protect them. I wanted to make sure they were safe when I was out on long jobs. Now those same cameras were about to show me the depth of their betrayal. Austin was pacing back and forth on the Persian rug I had bought for Esther. He looked manic. His hair was disheveled and he kept checking his watch. Kendra sat on the sofa, clutching a glass of wine with both hands. She looked pale. She looked terrified. But she did not look innocent. The doorbell rang on the video feed. Austin rushed to answer it. He came back leading a short, balding man carrying a battered leather briefcase. I recognized him immediately. It was Miller. He was a lawyer who operated out of a strip mall next to a pawn shop. He was the kind of man you called when you wanted to skirt the law, not uphold it. Thank you for coming on such short notice, Miller said, sitting down without being asked. His voice was oily and smooth coming through the laptop speakers. Austin says you have an urgent situation involving an elderly relative. Austin nodded vigorously. It is my father-in-law, Grady. He has completely lost it. He has become aggressive, paranoid, and dangerous. Yesterday, he started hallucinating that he owns this house. He threatened us. We had to kick him out for our own safety. I watched in silence as Austin spun his web of lies. He was sweating. He was desperate. Miller opened his briefcase and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Dementia is a tricky thing. It can come on fast. If he is a danger to himself or others, you have grounds for emergency guardianship. That would give you full control over his medical decisions and his finances. Kendra looked up from her wine glass. Control over his finances, she repeated. Her voice was small, but I heard the greed in it. Everything Miller confirmed. Social Security, pension, bank accounts. You would become his legal conservators. But you need a doctor to sign off on his incapacity. Do you have a family physician who would agree with your assessment? Our regular doctor is difficult, Austin said, waving his hand dismissively. He is old school. We need someone who understands the urgency. Someone who is willing to look at the facts we present rather than wasting time with lengthy exams. Miller smiled. It was a shark smile. I know a doctor like that. Dr. Evans. He is very understanding for a fee. $5,000 for the consultation and the signature? 5,000? Kendra gasped. We do not have that kind of cash right now. We will have it once we sell the house. Austin interrupted her. We just need the papers signed so we can close the sale without the old man interfering. Miller, can we pay you and the doctor after the house closes? Miller tapped his pen on the pad. I can work with that, but we need to figure out where to put him. Once you have guardianship, you cannot just leave him on the street. The court will want to see he is being cared for. I held my breath. This was it. This was the moment where my daughter would either stand up for me or bury me. There is a place called Shady Pines, Austin said. It is about an hour south. It is state-funded. It is cheap. Shady Pines. I knew the place. It was a warehouse for the forgotten. It smelled of urine and bleach. They had been cited multiple times for patient neglect. It was a place where people went to die alone. Kendra, I whispered to the screen. Do not do it. Please, baby girl, do not do it. Kendra looked at Austin. Then she looked at Miller. She took a long swallow of wine. Is it secure? She asked. Will they make sure he does not wander off and bother us? It is a lockdown facility, Miller said. Once he is checked in, he does not come out without your permission. Kendra nodded slowly. Okay, do it. Draw up the papers. We need him gone, and we need this house sold. I sat back in the hotel chair, feeling like I had been punched in the chest. The physical pain of the rain and the cold was nothing compared to this. My daughter had just agreed to lock me away in a hellhole. She had agreed to strip me of my rights, my freedom, and my mind just to cover her husband's gambling debts. Javon reached out and closed the laptop. The screen went black, but the image of Kendra nodding was burned into my retinas. Uncle Grady, Javon said softly, I am so sorry. Do not be sorry, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It was hard, flat, like fresh concrete. Be angry. Anger gets things done. Sorrow just drowns you. I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled out my best suit. It was a charcoal gray three-piece I had bought in London years ago. I put it on. I tied my tie with steady hands. I put on my gold cufflinks. I looked in the mirror. I did not look like a retired laborer anymore. I looked like a man who owned the block. Where are we going? Javon asked, grabbing his backpack. To see a real lawyer, I said. Austin brought a knife to a gunfight. I am about to bring a nuclear bomb. We took the Escalade to the financial district. The building was glass and steel piercing the sky. We went to the 45th floor. The receptionist at Thornton and Associates knew me by name. She smiled and buzzed me straight through. Robert Thornton was waiting for me in his corner office. He was a man of my generation, a lion of the legal world. We had started out together 40 years ago. Me fixing houses, him fixing legal troubles. We had both climbed to the top of our respective mountains. Grady, he boomed, standing up to shake my hand. You look like a man on a mission, but usually you call before you drop in. What is wrong? I sat down in the leather chair opposite his massive oak desk. I told him everything. I told him about the eviction, the theft of my money, the conspiracy with Miller, the plan to put me in Shady Pines. Thornton listened, his face growing darker with every word. When I told him about Shady Pines, he slammed his hand down on the desk. They will not touch you, he growled. I will have Miller disbarred for even suggesting a fake diagnosis. And as for your daughter and that leech she married, we will bury them in so much litigation they will need a breathing tube. That is the plan, I said. But first, we have a house to sell. Thornton looked confused. You want to let them sell the house? I smiled. A cold, humorless smile. Oh, they are going to try to sell the house. They are having an open house this weekend. They think they are going to flip it fast and take the cash. Let them, I said. Let them find a buyer. Let them sign the contracts. Let them think they have won. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a thick yellowed file. It smelled of old paper and history. I slid it across the desk to Thornton. Check the deed, Robert, I said. Thornton opened the file. He adjusted his glasses. He read the first page, then the second. His eyes widened. A slow grin spread across his face. It was the grin of a predator who just spotted a wounded gazelle. This is brilliant, he whispered. You transferred the structure to Kendra, the bricks, the wood, the roof. Yes, I said. I gave her the house. But Thornton tapped the document. You retained the land rights. It is a ground lease, a 99-year ground lease. Keep reading, I said. Look at Clause 14, subsection B. Thornton flipped the page. He read it aloud. In the event that the structure is sold, transferred, or inhabited by anyone other than the original grantee, the ground lease is immediately terminated and ownership of all improvements reverts to the landowner. He looked up at me and laughed. It was a deep belly laugh. Grady, you old fox. If she sells the house, she loses the house. Exactly, I said. She owns the air inside the rooms, but I own the dirt she walks on. And without my dirt, her house is worth exactly $0. Draw it up, Robert, I said. Prepare the eviction notice. Prepare the termination of the lease. I want everything ready for Sunday. Sunday, the day of the open house. I want to hand deliver it, I said. I want to see Austin S.'s face when he realizes he is trying to sell a castle built on my sand. Thornton pressed a button on his intercom. Sarah, get the team in here. We have work to do. Mr. Whitfield is going to teach a master class in property law. I walked to the window of Thornton S.'s office. I could see the suburbs from here, a patchwork of green and gray in the distance. Somewhere out there, Kendra and Austin were celebrating. They were probably toasting to their cleverness. They were probably spending money they did not have on a celebration they did not earn. Enjoy it while it lasts, I whispered to the glass, because Sunday is coming, and Sunday is Judgment Day. We spent the next 3 hours strategizing. Thornton called in his best litigators. We mapped out every angle. We prepared restraining orders against Austin for the theft of the car. We prepared fraud alerts for every bank in the city. We built a fortress of paperwork around me that no fake doctor or shady lawyer could penetrate. By the time we left, the sun was setting. The city was lighting up a million diamonds scattered across the velvet night. I felt tired, but it was a good tired. The kind of tired you feel after a long day of pouring foundation. Javon walked beside me, quiet and respectful. You know, Uncle, he said as we got into the car, they really underestimated you. People always do, son, I said, leaning back into the seat. They see the work boots and they think I am simple. They do not realize that you have to be smart to build something that lasts, and you have to be even smarter to take it apart piece by piece. We drove back to the Ritz. The city blurred past the window. I closed my eyes and pictured the open house. I pictured the balloons, the cookies baking in the oven, the fake smiles. I would be there, and I would bring the wrecking ball. Sunday morning arrived with a sky so blue it felt like an insult. It was the kind of day designed for church picnics and family barbecues, but at the house in Naperville, it was Judgment Day. From the back seat of the black Cadillac Escalade parked down the street, I watched the circus unfold. Kendra had gone all out. There were gold and white balloons tied to the mailbox bobbing in the wind like hollow promises. A sign on the lawn shouted "Open House" in bold red letters. Cars lined the street. Expensive cars, the kind driven by people who had cash to burn and no idea they were walking into a trap. Through the tinted window, I saw Kendra greeting a couple at the door. She was wearing a white dress projecting an image of purity and success. She laughed, tossing her hair back, and pointed to the flower beds I had planted with my own hands. I could practically hear the lies dripping from her lips. I signaled Javon, who was sitting in the front seat with a headset on, listening to the audio from the hidden cameras inside. "Turn it up," I said. Kendra's voice filled the car, crystal clear. "Oh yes, it is a difficult decision to sell," she was saying to a young couple holding hands. "But my father, his health has declined so rapidly. We moved him into Silver Lake Estates last week. It is a wonderful facility, top-of-the-line medical care. He is much happier there, surrounded by people his own age. We just want to simplify our assets so we can focus on his care." I felt a vain throb in my temple. Silver Lake Estates. It was the most expensive retirement community in the state. She was using a lie about my comfort to justify selling my home to pay for her husband's gambling debts. She was painting herself as the saintly daughter making sacrifices, while I was just the senile burden who needed to be managed. Austin was there too, playing the part of the grieving son-in-law. He was in the kitchen offering fresh-baked cookies to a man in a suit. "We hates to let it go," Austin said, his voice thick with fake emotion. "I put a lot of work into this place. Updated the electrical, finished the basement. It is a labor of love, really." He had never held a screwdriver in his life. The only thing Austin had ever updated was his Facebook status. "It is time," I said to Thornton, who was sitting beside me, reviewing a legal brief. Thornton closed the folder with a sharp snap. He looked like a general preparing for battle. His pinstripe suit was impeccable and his eyes were cold steel. "Let us go educate them on property law," he said. I opened the car door and stepped out. The air was crisp. I smoothed the lapels of my charcoal Italian wool suit. It cost $4,000. I wore a silk tie and shoes that gleamed like obsidian. I did not look like the man who carried trash bags in the rain 3 days ago. I looked like the man who signed the checks. We walked up the driveway in a formation. Me in the center, Thornton to my right, and 2 large men in dark suits flanking us. They were private security, former military, silent and intimidating. We reached the front door just as Kendra was ushering another couple inside. She froze. Her smile faltered, then vanished completely. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, struggling to reconcile the image of her father with the man standing before her. "Dad," she whispered, "what are you doing here? And why are you dressed like that?" I did not answer her. I walked past her, crossing the threshold into the house. The smell of vanilla and cinnamon hung in the air, masking the rot beneath. The living room was full of strangers, potential buyers admiring the crown molding I had installed, investors checking the hardwood floors I had laid. Austin came out of the kitchen, wiping crumbs from his mouth. When he saw me, his face went from confusion to a deep, violent shade of red. "You!" he shouted, pointing a finger at me. "I told you to stay away. Get out. Get out right now, or I will throw you out myself." The room went silent. The buyers stopped talking. All eyes turned to the commotion. Austin marched toward me, his fists clenched, trying to look dominant in front of the crowd. He wanted to show everyone that he was the man of the house. He lunged for my arm. Before he could touch me, one of the security guards stepped forward. It was a fluid, efficient motion. He caught Austin's wrist and twisted it slightly, just enough to stop him in his tracks and force him to bend his knees. "I would not do that, sir," the guard said, his voice calm but heavy with threat. "Assaulting Mr. Whitfield is a felony, and I am authorized to use necessary force to prevent it." Austin yelped in pain and pulled away, rubbing his wrist. He looked around the room, realizing for the first time that he had an audience. "Call the police," he screamed at Kendra. "He is trespassing. This is our house. He has no right to be here." Kendra fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking. "Dad, please," she hissed. "You are making a scene. You are ruining everything. Just leave. We can talk about this later." Thornton stepped forward. His voice boomed across the room, authoritative and sharp. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, addressing the stunned crowd. "My name is Robert Thornton, senior partner at Thornton & Associates. I represent Mr. Grady Whitfield, the gentleman standing beside me. I strongly advise you all to suspend your interest in this property immediately. This open house is being conducted under fraudulent pretenses." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The young couple near the door looked at each other and took a step back. Fraud Austin sputtered, "That is a lie. The deed is in Kendra's name. We have the papers. We can sell it if we want." I stepped forward then. I walked to the center of the room. I looked at the walls I had painted. I looked at the fireplace, the centerpiece of the living room. It was a massive structure built of rough-hewn stone. I had built it brick by brick 10 years ago. It was solid, unmovable, just like me. "You are right, Austin," I said, my voice steady and loud enough for everyone to hear. "The deed for the house is in Kendra's name." I gave it to her. I transferred ownership of the structure, the walls, the roof, the windows. "See?" Austin shouted triumphantly, turning to the crowd. "He admits it. It is our house. He is just a bitter old man trying to sabotage us." But I continued, cutting him off. "A house needs somewhere to sit, Austin. A house cannot float in the air." I walked over to the fireplace. I ran my hand along the rough stone mantel. I knew this fireplace better than I knew my own face. I knew every imperfection, every mortar line. Kendra watched me, her confusion growing. "What are you doing, Dad?" I knelt down. To the right of the hearth near the floor there was a stone that looked just like the others. But it wasn't. It was slightly loose, a hollow space I had built into the foundation for emergencies, a place to keep things safe, things like the original architectural plans, and one very specific legal document. I pressed my thumb against the corner of the stone. It clicked and popped out. Dust fell onto the polished floor. The crowd gasped. It was like a magic trick. I reached into the dark cavity and pulled out a thick leather-bound folder. It was cool to the touch. I stood up and dusted off my knees. I walked back to the center of the room and held the folder up. When I bought this property, I said, addressing the potential buyers, I was very careful. I wanted to make sure my daughter always had a roof over her head, but I also wanted to make sure she could never sell that roof out from under me. I opened the folder. This is a ground lease, I announced. A 99-year ground lease. I transferred the house to Kendra. But I, Grady Whitfield, retained full ownership of the land. The dirt, the grass, the driveway you parked your cars on, it all belongs to me. Austin S.'s face went pale. Kendra stopped breathing. Thornton stepped in to deliver the killing blow. Clause 14, subsection B. Thornton recited from memory, though he held a copy in his hand. In the event that the grantee attempts to sell, transfer, or vacate the premises without the express written consent of the landowner, the ground lease is immediately verified as null and void. Furthermore, any structure existing on said land immediately reverts to the ownership of the landholder. Thornton looked at Austin over the rim of his glasses. In plain English, young man, it means that as of the moment you listed this property for sale, you violated the lease. You do not own this house anymore. Mr. Whitfield does. You are trying to sell a building that you have legally forfeited. That is fraud. The room erupted. The buyers turned on the real estate agent, who looked like she wanted to vomit. People started shouting questions. The young couple sprinted for the door. "This is insane," Austin screamed, his voice cracking. "That is not true. He is lying. Show me the paper." I tossed the folder onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud. "Read it," I said. "It is notarized. It is filed with the county. It is ironclad." Kendra grabbed the folder. She tore through the pages, her eyes scanning frantically. I saw the moment she found the clause. Her shoulders slumped. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a ghost in a wedding dress. "You knew," she whispered, looking up at me. "You knew this whole time." "I built this house, Kendra," I said. "I know every secret it holds. And I knew that one day you might forget who gave it to you, so I kept an insurance policy." Austin snatched the papers from her. "No, no, no," he muttered, pacing in a circle. "This cannot be happening. We have offers. We have the money spent already. We need this sale." "You have nothing, Austin," I said coldly. "You are trying to sell my dirt, and my dirt is not for sale." I turned to the remaining guests. "This open house is over," I declared. "Please leave my property immediately. Anyone remaining in 5 minutes will be considered trespassing." The exodus was fast. People scrambled to get out, muttering apologies and curses. The real estate agent grabbed her sign from the lawn and threw it in her trunk, peeling away before the dust had even settled. In minutes, it was just us. Me, Thornton, the guards, and the 2 people who had tried to throw me away. Austin looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. He was shaking. "You think you are so smart," he spat. "You think you won." "I did not win, Austin," I said. "I just stopped losing. You ruined us." Kendra cried, tears streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. "We needed that money, Dad. Austin is in trouble. Real trouble. I know," I said. "I know about the $200,000. I know about the sharks." Her eyes widened. "How do you know?" "I know everything," I said. "I know you are not a marketing genius, Kendra. I know Austin is not a stockbroker. I know you are drowning. And I know you were willing to sacrifice me to save yourselves. So help us," she begged, falling to her knees. "Daddy, please. If we do not pay them, they will hurt him. They will hurt us. Just sign the land over. Just let us sell it, please." I looked down at her. She was the same girl who used to beg for toys in the grocery store. But this time the price tag was my dignity. "No," I said. Austin let out a guttural roar. He lunged at me again, blind with rage. "I will kill you," he screamed. "I will kill you yourself, you old bastard." The guards grabbed him before he got within 5 feet of me. They slammed him onto the hardwood floor, pinning his arms behind his back. Thornton pulled out his phone. "Officer," he said into the receiver, "we have an assault in progress at 452 Maple Drive. Yes, we have the assailant detained. Please send a unit." Austin struggled against the guards, shouting obscenities. Kendra sobbed on the floor. I looked at the fireplace. I looked at the empty spot where the brick had been. The secret was out. The foundation was exposed. And the house of cards they had built was collapsing around them. "I warned you," I said softly. "I told you to check the deed. I turned and walked out the door, leaving them to the wreckage of their own greed. The sun was still shining outside, but for Kendra and Austin, the long dark night had just begun. The silence in the room was heavier than a wet bag of cement. The open house had turned into a funeral for my daughter's financial future. Robert Thornton stood in the center of the living room, holding the leather folder like a weapon. He looked at the few remaining buyers who were lingering near the door, confused and whispers rippling among them. I stood by the fireplace, watching the realization seep into the room like cold water. Thornton cleared his throat. His voice was calm, authoritative, the voice of a man who billed $500 an hour and was worth every penny. He addressed the room, but his eyes were fixed on Austin. "Let me be perfectly clear about the legal standing of this property," Thornton said. "Mr. Whitfield transferred the deed of the structure to his daughter, Kendra Miller, 10 years ago. That includes the bricks, the mortar, the drywall, and the roof. However, he retained the fee-simple title to the land itself. This is a 99-year ground lease." One of the potential buyers, a man in a navy suit, stepped forward. "What does that mean for a buyer?" he asked. Thornton smiled a shark-like grin. "It means that Clause 14 is triggered the moment a sale is initiated. The lease states that the land rights are non-transferable. If the structure is sold to a third party, the ground lease automatically terminates. The landowner has the right to demand the immediate removal of the structure or to take possession of it." "Removal of the structure," Austin stammered. His face was gray. "You mean move the house?" "Exactly," Thornton said. "If you sell this house, the new owner has 30 days to pick it up and move it to a new plot of land. If they do not, the house becomes the property of Mr. Whitfield. So effectively you are selling a pile of bricks that sits on land you do not own and cannot use." The buyer in the navy suit let out a sharp laugh. It was a sound of disbelief. "You are trying to sell a house that has to be moved. That is ridiculous. The moving costs alone would be more than the value of the property. This listing is a scam." He turned to his wife. "Let us go, honey. These people are crazy." "Wait," Kendra cried out, reaching for the woman's arm. "Please do not go. We can work something out. My father is just being difficult. We can negotiate the land." The woman pulled her arm away, looking at Kendra with a mixture of pity and disgust. "Honey, you do not own the land. You have nothing to negotiate. You are trying to sell something that does not belong to you. Good luck." They walked out. The other buyers followed quickly, murmuring about lawsuits and wasted time. Within 2 minutes, the house was empty. The door clicked shut, echoing in the cavernous silence of the living room. Kendra stood in the middle of the floor, trembling. She looked at the walls she thought were her safety net. She realized now that they were a prison. She owned a house she could not sell on land she could not control. Her asset was worthless. Her collateral for the loans was dust. Thornton closed the folder with a final decisive snap. "We will be in touch regarding the eviction timeline," Thornton said to them. "You have violated the terms of the lease by listing the property. Mr. Whitfield is exercising his right to terminate. You have 30 days to vacate." I did not say a word. I just looked at them one last time. Then I turned and walked out the door, followed by Thornton and the guards. I got into the back of the Cadillac Escalade. I did not feel triumph. I felt a deep, hollow ache. I had just destroyed my daughter's life to save her from herself. "Drive," I told the driver. "Just drive." We went back to the Ritz-Carlton. Javon was waiting. He had the laptop set up on the coffee table. The video feed from the living room was still running. "You need to see this." Uncle Javon said, his voice low and serious. "They think you are gone. The mask is coming off." I sat down and looked at the screen. Austin and Kendra were alone in the living room. The afternoon sun filtered through the sheer curtains, illuminating the wreckage of their plans. Kendra was sitting on the sofa, sobbing, her face buried in her hands. Austin was standing by the window, staring out at the street where the buyers' cars had disappeared. He turned around slowly. His face was not the face of a grieving son-in-law or a worried husband. It was the face of a cornered animal. It was twisted with a rage so pure it distorted his features. "Stop crying," he shouted at Kendra. His voice came through the laptop speakers, tinny but terrifying. "Stop that pathetic whining." Kendra looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Austin, what are we going to do? The investors, the loans, they are going to kill us. You said we could sell the house. You said the deed was clear." "I thought the old man was stupid," Austin roared. He kicked the coffee table, sending a vase of flowers crashing to the floor. Water and glass exploded across the rug. I thought he was just a dumb laborer who signed whatever papers the bank put in front of him. I did not know he was playing games with ground leases. "He is not stupid," Kendra whispered. "He built this business. I told you. I told you we should not have pushed him so hard." "Shut up," Austin yelled. He crossed the room in 2 strides. He towered over her. "You told me nothing. You are the one who said he was a burden. You are the one who said he smelled. You are the one who wanted him gone so you could turn his room into a studio. Do not try to pin this on me." "I never wanted this," Kendra cried, shrinking back into the cushions. "I just wanted the money, Austin. I wanted to help you." "You are useless," Austin spat. "You are just like him, useless and stupid." Then he did something that made me grip the edge of the hotel desk until my knuckles turned white. He raised his hand and slapped her. It was a hard, vicious backhand. Kendra's head snapped to the side. She cried out a sharp sound of pain and shock. She brought her hand up to her cheek, staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. I stood up, knocking my chair over. My instinct was to run to the door to drive back there to tear him apart with my bare hands. But Javon put a hand on my arm. "Uncle, wait," Javon said. "Look." On the screen, Austin was breathing hard, his chest heaving. He pointed a finger at Kendra, who was cowering on the sofa. "You fix this," he hissed. "You call him. You beg him. You get on your knees if you have to, but you get that land signed over to us. Because if those guys from the loan agency come looking for me and I do not have the money, I'm going to tell them that you spent it. I am going to tell them it is your fault, and they will come for you, Kendra. Do you understand me?" Kendra nodded, terrified tears streaming down her face. "I am going out," Austin said, straightening his jacket. "Fix it!" He stormed out of the room, slamming the front door so hard the camera shook. Kendra was left alone, sobbing in the empty house, clutching her cheek. I sank back into the chair. My rage was a cold, hard thing now. Austin Miller had made a fatal mistake. He had put his hands on my daughter. He had crossed the line from thief to abuser. And for that, there would be no mercy. "Save that footage," I told Javon. "Save it all. Every second." "We have it," Uncle Javon said. "Cloud backup. Secure server." "Good," I said. "Now hand me the phone." I did not have to wait long. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was not Kendra. It was Austin. I answered on the first ring. I did not say hello. "You hit her," I said. My voice was a low rumble like thunder before a storm. Austin laughed. It was a manic, unhinged sound. "You have cameras, old man." "Of course you do. You are a paranoid freak. Well, then you know I am serious. You saw what happens when people disappoint me. You are a dead man walking, Austin," I said. "You just do not know it yet." "Is that a threat?" he asked. "Because I have threats too, Grady. I have dirt. Real dirt." I waited. 1990, he said. "The Johnson job. The high-rise on Michigan Avenue. You remember that, do you not? The accident. The foreman who fell down the elevator shaft." I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. It was a tragedy. A terrible accident that had haunted me for years. A man had died on my site. There was an investigation. I was cleared. It was ruled a safety equipment failure, not negligence. But rumors had swirled, nasty rumors that I had cut corners to save money. I was cleared, I said, my voice steady. The safety inspectors cleared me. The police cleared me. It was an accident. "Was it?" Austin asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Because I found some old files in the basement, Grady. Some old payroll logs, some safety reports that maybe did not make it to the police. They look very interesting. They look like the kind of thing that would destroy a man's reputation, the kind of thing that would make the city review all your permits, all your contracts." "You are bluffing," I said. "There are no such files. I kept everything." Maybe, Austin said. Maybe not. "But are you willing to take that risk? Are you willing to have your name dragged through the mud again? To have everyone think you built your fortune on a dead man's back?" "What do you want, Austin?" "I want the land," he said. "Sign over the deed. Tonight. Or tomorrow morning I call the Tribune, I call the Union, I call everyone, and I tell them Grady Whitfield is a killer." I closed my eyes. He was desperate. He was flailing, but a flailing man can still land a punch. "You do what you have to do, Austin," I said. "But remember one thing. When you dig up the past, you might fall into the hole yourself. I hung up the phone. He thinks he has me, Javon asked, looking concerned. He thinks he has a ghost, I said, standing up. But I made peace with that ghost a long time ago. He wants to bring up 1990. Fine, let him. But he forgets that in 1990 he was in diapers, and I was building this city with steel and concrete. I walked to the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over Chicago. Get Thornton on the phone, I said, and call the chief of police. It is time to call in some favors. Austin wants to talk about crimes. Let us give him a real crime to worry about. The night was coming, and with it the storm I had promised. Austin Miller was about to find out that you cannot blackmail a man who has nothing left to lose. The rain hammered against the glass of the presidential suite like 1,000 angry fists trying to break in. It was a fitting soundtrack for the storm that was about to tear through my life. Javon was asleep on the pull-out couch, exhausted from a day of cyber warfare, but I was wide awake. I sat in the wingback chair, staring at the door. I had a feeling. Call it a gut instinct, call it the wisdom of 68 years on this earth, but I knew Austin was not done. He was a cornered rat, and rats bite. At 2 in the morning, the knock came. It was not the polite tap of room service. It was a heavy authoritarian pounding that shook the frame. Javon jumped up, eyes wide, blinking the sleep away. "Stay back, Javon," I said, standing up. My knees popped, but my hands were steady. I opened the door. 3 men stood in the hallway. They wore plain clothes, but they had the unmistakable stance of cops, bad cops. The one in front was a bulldog of a man with a thick neck and eyes that looked like flat black stones. He flashed a badge so fast I barely saw the metal. "Detective Higgins, Chicago PD," he grunted, pushing past me into the room without waiting for an invitation. "We received an anonymous tip regarding narcotics distribution from this room. We have a warrant to search the premises." He waved a piece of paper in my face. It looked official, but the ink was barely dry. "Narcotics," I said, my voice calm. "You must be joking. The only drugs in this room are my blood pressure medication and some aspirin." "We will see about that." Higgins sneered. "Tear it apart, boys." The other 2 men moved with practiced brutality. They overturned the mattresses. They dumped drawers onto the floor. They ripped the cushions off the velvet sofas. It was not a search. It was a message. They were destroying my sanctuary. They were showing me that no amount of money could protect me from the system. I knew immediately who was behind this. Austin. My mind flashed back to earlier that evening. I had gone down to the lobby to pick up a newspaper. A man in a hooded sweatshirt had bumped into me hard. He had spilled coffee on my old canvas work coat, the one I refused to throw away. He had apologized profusely, patting me down with a napkin, making a show of cleaning the stain. I had brushed him off, thinking he was just clumsy. Now I realized he was not clumsy. He was a professional, and he had put something in my pocket. "My coat," I said. It was hanging in the closet near the door. Higgins followed my gaze. He walked over to the closet and yanked the coat off the hanger. He dug his hand into the right pocket, the pocket where the man had patted me down. "Well, well, well," Higgins said, pulling out a small, clear plastic bag filled with white powder. It looked like cocaine, enough to put a man away for a long time. "Look at what we found, Grandpa. Possession with intent to distribute. That is a felony." Javon stepped forward. "That is a setup," he shouted. "You planted that. My uncle does not touch drugs. He is a church deacon, for God's sake." "Sit down, kid," Higgins barked, putting a hand on his holster. "Unless you want to join him in the cage." Higgins walked over to me. He grabbed my wrists and twisted them behind my back. The metal handcuffs clicked shut. They were tight. Too tight. He did it on purpose to make me feel small, to make me feel powerless. "Grady Whitfield, you are under arrest." He recited the rights, but his tone was mocking. "You have the right to remain silent, but I bet you are going to do a lot of crying when we get you down to the precinct." He shoved me toward the door. I stumbled, but I did not fall. I would not give him the satisfaction. "I want my phone call," I said. "You can make a call when we book you." Higgins said, pushing me again. "No," I said, stopping in my tracks and planting my feet. "I know my rights. I am an old man with a heart condition. You are using excessive force. If you do not let me make a call right now, my lawyer will have your badge before the sun comes up. And looking at this suite, I think you know I can afford the kind of lawyer who plays golf with the mayor." Higgins hesitated. He looked around the luxurious room. He looked at the black card sitting on the table. Doubt crept into his eyes. He was a bully, and bullies are cowards. "Fine," he spat. "One call. Make it quick." He pulled his own phone out and held it to my ear, not uncuffing me. I did not call Thornton. A lawyer would take too long. I needed immediate intervention. I needed someone who commanded respect in this city. I dialed a number I had memorized 20 years ago. It rang twice. "Hello?" A deep, groggy voice answered. "Marcus," I said. "It is Grady. Grady Whitfield." There was a pause. Then the voice cleared instantly, sharp and awake. "Grady. Is everything all right? It is 3 in the morning. "I am at the Ritz-Carlton," I said. "Room 402. I have a Detective Higgins here." He just found a bag of white powder in a coat pocket that was empty when I put it on this morning. He has me in cuffs, Marcus. He says I am a drug dealer. The silence on the other end was terrifying. Then a low, dangerous growl. "Higgins. You said Higgins." "Yes," I said. "Put him on." I looked at the detective. "The person on the line wants to speak to you." Higgins rolled his eyes and took the phone. "Yeah, this is Higgins. Who is this?" I watched the blood drain from Higgins' face. It started at his forehead and went all the way down to his thick neck. His eyes went wide. His hands started to shake. "Chief," he stammered. "No, sir." "Yes, sir." "I did not know. It was an anonymous tip, sir." "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." He handed the phone back to me with trembling fingers. He fumbled for his keys and unlocked the handcuffs. His arrogance was gone, replaced by the sheer terror of a man who just realized he poked a lion. "He is on his way," Higgins whispered. We waited in silence. The 2 other cops stopped tossing the room and stood by the wall looking like schoolboys caught smoking. Javon helped me sit down. He brought me a glass of water. 10 minutes later, the door opened. Marcus Thorne walked in. He was 6'4", a mountain of a man. He was the chief of police of Chicago, but to me, he was just Marcus, the kid from the neighborhood who used to mow my lawn for pocket change. I had paid for his football gear in high school. I had written the recommendation letter for the police academy. I had watched him rise. He was wearing a trench coat over his pajamas. He did not look happy. Grady, Marcus said, walking over and checking my wrists for bruises. "Are you okay?" "I am fine, Marcus," I said. "Just a little humiliated." Marcus turned to Higgins. The detective shrank back. "You raided the Ritz-Carlton on an anonymous tip," Marcus asked, his voice deceptively soft. "You handcuffed a pillar of this community, a man who has built half the schools in this district. It looked legit." Chief Higgins stammered. "The cocaine. It was in his pocket." "It was planted, you moron," Marcus roared. "And I know who planted it because I know you, Higgins. I know you take payouts. I have been building a file on you for 6 months. I just needed one more screw-up to nail you. And congratulations. You just delivered it." Marcus turned to the other 2 officers. "Get out. Wait in the hall. If you want to keep your pensions, you will forget you were ever here." They scrambled out. Marcus looked back at Higgins. "Give me your badge. And your gun." "Chief, please," Higgins begged. "I have a family." "You should have thought about that before you took a bribe to frame an innocent man," Marcus said. "Badge. Gun. Now." Higgins handed them over. He looked small, defeated. "Get out of my sight," Marcus said. "Report to Internal Affairs at 0800. You are suspended pending an investigation, and if I find out who paid you, and I will find out you are looking at prison time." Higgins slunk out of the room. The door closed. The storm outside raged on, but the storm inside had passed. "Thank you, Marcus," I said, rubbing my wrists. "Do not thank me, Grady," Marcus said, sitting on the arm of the sofa. "You saved me the trouble of hunting him down. But you have to tell me, who hates you this much? Who hates you enough to risk a felony setup?" "It is family, Marcus," I said heavily. "My son-in-law, Austin Miller." Marcus shook his head. "Family. It is always the ones closest to you who cut the deepest. Do you want me to pick him up?" "No," I said, standing up. "Not yet. If you arrest him now, he will claim he knew nothing about it. He used a dirty cop to do his dirty work. I need to bury him completely. I need him to have nothing left." Marcus stood up and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You always were a stubborn old mule." "All right, you handle it your way. But if you need backup, you call me. I will, I promised." Marcus left. I was alone with Javon again. The room was a wreck, but my mind was clear. Austin had tried to put me in a cage. He had tried to brand me a criminal. He had tried to take away the one thing I valued more than money, my good name. "Hand me my phone, Javon," I said. I opened the messaging app. I typed a message to Kendra. It was short. It was brutal. "Your husband just paid a cop to plant drugs on me. He tried to send your father to prison tonight. The chief of police just left my room. The cop is gone. Austin is next. This is your last chance, Kendra. Leave him. Pack your bags and leave him tonight, or you go down with the ship. Choose." I hit send. I watched the screen. Read at 3:14 a.m. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Then the 3 little dots appeared. She was typing. "You are lying. Austin is asleep next to me. He would never do that. You are just trying to tear us apart because you are jealous and lonely. Leave us alone, Dad. You are crazy." I stared at the words. She chose. She chose the lie. She chose the man who would sell her soul for a poker chip. "So be it," I whispered. I looked at Javon. "Call the Russians," I said. Javon dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the floor. "The Russians? Uncle? You mean Nikolai?" "I mean Nikolai," I said. "Austin owes money to the mob, right? You said he borrowed from private lenders." "Yes," Javon said, his voice trembling. "But Nikolai is not a lender. He is a butcher." "I know," I said. "I built a warehouse for him in the 90s. He respects me. He respects a man who keeps his word." "Call him," I repeated. "Tell him I want to buy Austin's debt. All of it." "But why?" Javon asked. "Why would you pay his debt?" "I am not paying it for him," I said, walking to the window. "I am buying it. I am becoming the creditor, because the bank can only take his house. But Nikolai can take his peace of mind, and when I own the debt, I own Austin." I looked out at the city. The rain had stopped. The sun was threatening to rise. It was going to be a beautiful day. A beautiful day for a reckoning. "Make the call, Javon, and tell Nikolai I am coming to see him, with cash." Javon shook my shoulder roughly, snapping me out of a light doze. "Uncle, wake up. It is happening. They are at the house." I sat up, instantly reaching for my glasses. The laptop screen was glowing in the dark hotel room, showing the live feed from my living room in Naperville. It was chaos. The front door had been kicked in. Splinters of wood littered the foyer I had tiled myself. 3 men were inside. They were huge, wearing leather jackets and expressions of bored violence. I recognized the one in the middle. It was Yuri, one of Nikolai's top enforcers. He was holding a baseball bat, and he was using it to systematically destroy everything in his path. Smash. The flat-screen TV exploded in a shower of sparks and glass. Smash. The antique vase on the mantel turned to dust. Austin and Kendra were huddled in the corner near the kitchen island. They were clinging to each other, screaming. Austin looked like he was about to faint. He was pale, shaking so hard I could see it on the grainy video feed. Kendra was sobbing, her hands covering her ears, trying to block out the sound of her life being dismantled. "Where is the money?" Yuri roared. His voice was heavy with a thick Russian accent. "Nikolai wants his money, Austin. The deadline was midnight. It is now 1 in the morning. I do not have it." Austin squealed. "I need more time. Please just give me 2 more days. I am selling the house. The sale falls through, but I have another buyer lined up." "Liar," Yuri shouted. He swung the bat and smashed the glass coffee table. Shards flew everywhere. "We know about the lease, Austin. We know you cannot sell the house. You have nothing. And when you have nothing, you pay with flesh." Yuri signaled to the other 2 men. They lunged forward. They grabbed Austin. He screamed a high-pitched sound that was pathetic coming from a grown man. They dragged him toward the kitchen counter. One of the men pulled out a pair of heavy-duty garden shears. "I do not have the money," Austin shrieked, kicking his legs. "Ask her. Ask my wife. She has money. Her father has money. Take her." I watched in horror as my son-in-law, the man who promised to protect my daughter, shoved Kendra forward. He literally used both hands to push her toward the thugs, offering her up as a sacrifice to save his own skin. "Take her," Austin yelled again. "She signed the loan papers too. She is liable. Cut her fingers. Just leave me alone." Kendra stumbled forward, falling to her knees in front of Yuri. She looked back at her husband with a look of absolute betrayal. It was the look of a woman realizing that the man she loved was not just a failure, but a monster. She looked at the shears. She looked at Yuri. Then she screamed. "Daddy!" It was a primal scream. a cry for help directed at the only man who had ever actually kept her safe. My phone rang. It was Kendra. Rang. I picked it up immediately. "Daddy, please," she sobbed into the phone, her voice hysterical. "They are going to kill us. Austin owes them money. They have guns, Daddy. They have knives. Please come. Please save me." I stood up, buttoning my jacket. I did not feel fear. I felt a cold, deadly calm. I had anticipated this. I had prepared for this. "I am coming, Kendra," I said. "Stay down. Do not look them in the eye. I will be there in 20 minutes. I hung up. Javon was already packing the laptop. "Stay here, Javon," I ordered. "This part is not for you. This part gets ugly." "But Uncle, stay," I commanded. "Monitor the feed. If they touch her before I get there, call the police." But not a second before. I walked out of the suite and down to the lobby. The black Escalade was waiting, but this time it was not alone. 2 black SUVs were idling behind it. The doors opened and 6 men stepped out. They were not hotel staff. They were my private security detail led by a man named Stone. Stone was ex-Special Forces, a man who had seen combat in places most people could not find on a map. He looked at me and nodded. "We are ready," Mr. Whitfield, Stone said. "We have non-lethal rounds loaded, but we are prepared for lethal if necessary." "Let us hope it does not come to that," I said, climbing into the Escalade. "Just get me there fast." We tore through the night, the city lights blurring into streaks of neon. I sat in the back, clutching the handle of the door, watching the miles disappear. I thought about Austin pushing Kendra toward the shears. I thought about the fear in her voice. I hated him in that moment more than I had ever hated anyone. He had broken my heart, but now he was endangering my blood. And for that, there is no forgiveness. We pulled up to the house in Naperville with a screech of tires. The front door was wide open, hanging off its hinges. The lights inside were blazing, illuminating the destruction. Stone and his team moved fast. They fanned out, weapons drawn, moving with the silent precision of predators. I walked up the driveway behind them, my cane tapping a steady rhythm on the concrete. I walked through the broken door. The living room was a war zone. Furniture overturned, glass everywhere. Yuri and his men turned, surprised by the sudden intrusion. They raised their weapons, bats and a pistol, but they froze when they saw the red laser dots dancing on their chests. "Drop it!" Stone barked, his voice leaving no room for argument. Yuri hesitated. He looked at his men. He looked at the 6 armed professionals pointing assault rifles at him. He slowly lowered the bat. The other man dropped the shears. They clattered onto the tile floor, a sound that made Kendra flinch. Kendra was huddled on the floor, shaking violently. Austin was cowering behind the kitchen island, peeking out like a rat. I walked into the center of the room. I stepped over the remains of the vase I had given them for their anniversary. I stopped in front of Yuri. He was a big man, but I did not back down. I looked him in the eye. "This is my house," I said, "and that is my daughter." "You are making a mess, Yuri." Yuri squinted at me. "Who are you, old man?" "I am the man who built the warehouse on 35th Street, I said. "The one Nikolai uses to store his imports. I am the man who reinforced the foundation so it would not collapse under the weight of his crates." Yuri's eyes widened slightly. "You are Whitfield, the builder." "I am," I said, "and I want to speak to your boss, now." Yuri pulled out a phone. He dialed a number and spoke rapidly in Russian. He nodded a few times, then held the phone out to me. I took it. "Nikolai," I said, greeting him in his own language. My Russian was rusty, learned over years of working with immigrant crews and international contracts, but it was passable. "It has been a long time, Grady Whitfield." Nikolai's voice boomed through the speaker, deep and jovial. "I did not know you were mixed up with this garbage. My men tell me you are interfering with a collection." "I am not interfering, Nikolai," I said, switching back to English so everyone in the room could understand. "I am facilitating. The boy Austin. He owes you money. $500,000. Nikolai said, his voice hardening. "He played the market with money he did not have. He lost it all. He promised to pay me back when he sold a house. But my men tell me the house is not his to sell." "That is correct," I said. "The house is mine. And so is the daughter he just tried to feed to your wolves." There was a silence on the line. Then Nikolai spoke. "I have no quarrel with you, Grady. You are a man of honor. But business is business. The boy pays or he bleeds. I understand, I said. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. I motioned for Stone to bring the briefcase from the car. Stone placed a silver metal case on the kitchen counter right next to the shears Austin had almost felt. I opened the case. Inside were neat stacks of $100 bills. $200,000, I said. Cash. Unmarked. Right now. Yuri looked at the money. He licked his lips. Austin stood up from behind the island. 200,000. That is it. I owe 5. That is not enough. Shut up, Austin, I snapped without looking at him. Nikolai, I said into the phone. 200,000 today. That saves you the trouble of hunting him down. It saves you the mess of cleaning up a murder. It is a good deal. Take the cash and walk away, or my men can escort your men out and we can turn this into a war. And you know I have the resources to make it a very long, very expensive war. Nikolai laughed. It was a dry sound. You always were a hard negotiator, Grady. Fine. 200,000. Consider the debt settled. But tell that boy if I ever see him again, I will not be so reasonable. Agreed, I said. I handed the phone back to Yuri. He listened for a moment, nodded, and signaled his men. One of them grabbed the briefcase. They backed out of the house, their eyes still wary of Stone's team. When they were gone, the silence that rushed back into the room was deafening. Kendra let out a long, shuddering breath. She crawled across the floor toward me. Daddy, she wept, wrapping her arms around my legs. You saved us. You saved us. I am so sorry. I love you. Thank you. I looked down at her. I did not touch her. I did not stroke her hair. I felt nothing but a profound exhaustion. Austin stood up, brushing the dust off his pants. He tried to compose himself, tried to put the mask of arrogance back on, but it fit poorly now. He looked at the empty spot where the briefcase had been. Wow, he said, letting out a nervous laugh. That was close. Thanks, Grady. I knew you would come through. I knew you had money stashed away. I told Kendra you were holding out on us. 500 grand debt settled for 2. That is a steal. We are free. He walked toward the fridge, opening it to grab a beer as if nothing had happened. As if he hadn't just tried to sacrifice his wife. As if I hadn't just bought his life. We are going to have to celebrate, he said, popping the tab. Maybe we can finally talk about that land transfer now that we are all on the same team. I watched him drink. I watched Kendra clinging to my leg, looking up at me with hope in her eyes, thinking everything was going back to normal, thinking Daddy had fixed it. I motioned to Stone. He handed me a folder. I walked over to Austin. I slapped the folder onto the counter, knocking the beer out of his hand. We are not on the same team, Austin, I said, my voice low and dangerous. And you are not free. What are you talking about? Austin asked, rubbing his hand. You paid him. The debt is gone. I paid him, I said, but I did not pay it for you. I bought it. I opened the folder, revealing the transfer of debt agreement I had prepared with Thornton earlier that day. It was a standard contract used by debt collectors. By paying Nikolai, I had become the holder of the note. I own your debt now, Austin, I said. You owe me $500,000, plus interest. And unlike Nikolai, I do not want cash. I want justice. Austin's eyes went wide. You cannot do that. You are family. I am not family, I said. I am your creditor, and I am calling in the loan. Immediately. I turned to Kendra. I pulled my leg away from her grasp. And you, I said, looking at my daughter, you watched him push you toward a man with a knife. You watched him offer your fingers to save his own skin, and you are still standing here looking at him like he is a victim. Daddy, he was scared, she whispered. He didn't mean it. He meant every word I said. And so do I. I turned to Stone. Secure the property. Make sure they do not leave until I say so. I walked toward the door, stepping over the broken glass. Where are you going? Austin shouted, panic rising in his voice again. I am going to sleep, I said without turning back. Tomorrow morning my lawyers will be here with the foreclosure papers. And Austin, do not try to run. My security team will be watching every exit. You are mine now. I walked out into the cool night air. I had saved their lives. But I had also just signed their warrant. The physical danger was over. But the real punishment was just beginning. The morning sun filtered through the shattered windows of the house in Naperville, illuminating the wreckage of the night before. I was not there physically, but I was watching. The hidden cameras were still rolling, capturing the aftermath of the storm. From the comfort of my hotel suite, I drank my coffee and witnessed the depth of Austin's delusion. He was sitting at the kitchen island, pushing aside broken glass to make space for a bowl of cereal. He looked terrible. His face was bruised from where the security guard had pinned him, and his eyes were bloodshot. But there was a smile on his face, a smug, self-satisfied smile that made my stomach turn. Kendra walked in. She looked like a ghost. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and she was hugging herself as if trying to hold her pieces together. She looked at the destroyed living room, and then at her husband eating cereal as if nothing had happened. "How can you eat?" she whispered. "They almost killed us, Austin. My father had to bring a briefcase of cash to save our lives." Austin laughed. It was a sound devoid of gratitude. "Save our lives, Kendra, please." He was showing off. That is what he does. He wanted to play the big man. He wanted to remind us that he has money and we do not. "He paid $200,000 for you," Kendra said, her voice trembling. $200,000? Cash. "Exactly," Austin said, waving his spoon. "And do you know why? Because he is weak. He pretends to be this hard-nosed businessman, but deep down, he is just a lonely old man who is desperate for our approval. He paid that debt because he wants to come back. He wants us to forgive him." Kendra stared at him. "You are delusional. He said he owns the debt. He said he wants justice." Bluffing, Austin scoffed. "He is bluffing. He is not going to sue his own daughter. He paid Nikolai to get the Russians off my back. That means the debt is gone. Poof. Vanished. We are in the clear, babe. Now we just have to wait a few days, let him cool down, and then invite him over for dinner. We will apologize, he will cry, and then we will get him to sign over the land rights. You watch. He is desperate to be part of this family again." I watched the screen and shook my head. He truly believed it. He was so consumed by his own narcissism that he could not see the blade hanging over his neck. He thought my mercy was weakness. He thought my love was a weakness. He did not understand that I had killed the part of me that needed them the moment I saw my clothes in the trash. "Enjoy your cereal, Austin," I whispered to the empty hotel room. "It is the last meal you will ever eat in that house." An hour later, a black sedan pulled into the driveway, followed by a Sheriff S van. Robert Thornton stepped out carrying a leather portfolio. 2 uniformed deputies flanked him. They did not knock. The door was already broken. They walked right in. Austin jumped up from his stool, spilling milk onto the floor. "Who are you?" "What is this?" Thornton stopped in the center of the kitchen. He looked at Austin with the same expression one might use when looking at a stain on a rug. "Mr. Miller," Thornton said, his voice crisp and professional. "I am Robert Thornton, attorney for Mr. Grady Whitfield. These officers are here to enforce a writ of attachment and seizure issued by the Cook County Circuit Court this morning." "Seizure?" Austin stammered. "What are you talking about? What are you—" "The debt is paid. Your client paid it." "My client purchased the promissory note," Thornton corrected him. "He is now the holder in due course of your debt. The principal amount is $500,000, plus accrued interest and penalties. Since you are in default, my client has exercised his right to call the loan immediately." "He cannot do that," Austin shouted. "He is my father-in-law." "He is your creditor," Thornton said coldly. "And since you have no cash assets, we are here to seize collateral." "Collateral?" Kendra asked, stepping forward. Her voice was thin with fear. "What collateral? We do not have anything. The house is worthless without the land." Thornton turned to her. "Mrs. Miller, you co-signed 3 of the private loans your husband took out. Your signature is right here. That makes you jointly and severally liable. Since you have no liquid funds, the court has authorized the seizure of all personal property of value located at this address to satisfy the judgment." He signaled to the deputies. "Start tagging," Thornton ordered. "Electronics, jewelry, artwork, vehicles, anything that can be auctioned." "Wait, no!" Austin screamed, lunging at a deputy who was reaching for the laptop on the counter. "You cannot take that!" The deputy shoved him back hard. "Sit down, sir, or you will be arrested for obstruction." Kendra watched in horror as the deputies moved through the house. They placed neon orange stickers on everything, the flat-screen TV in the bedroom, the designer handbags in Kendra S. closet, the espresso machine, even the engagement ring on Kendra S. finger was listed on the warrant. "This is my ring," Kendra cried, clutching her hand. "He gave this to me. Bought with funds he did not have," Thornton said. "Hand it over, Mrs. Miller, or we will add contempt of court to your problems." Kendra sobbed as she slid the ring off her finger. It was the ring I had helped Austin pay for because he claimed he was short on cash that month. Now it was going back into the pot to pay me back. The circle was closing. Austin sat on the floor, his head in his hands. This is not happening. He is bluffing. He has to be bluffing. Thornton leaned down. His face was inches from Austin-esque Grady Whitfield does not bluff, son. He builds. And right now he is building a cage for you. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises before the locks are changed again. And this time they will be changed by the sheriff. Thornton straightened up and checked his watch. Have a nice day, he said. He walked out, leaving them sitting in the ruins of their false kingdom. The orange stickers on their possessions glowed like brands of shame. They owned nothing. Not the roof over their heads, not the rings on their fingers, not even the illusion of their own success. I turned off the laptop. I did not need to see anymore. The legal machinery was grinding them down just as I had planned. But there was one last act to play out. One final betrayal that I knew was coming because I knew the nature of a coward. My phone rang at 4 p.m. It was Kendra. "Dad," she whispered. Her voice was hollow. Broken. They took everything. They took my ring. "I know," I said. "Why are you doing this, Dad? Why do you hate us?" "I do not hate you." "Kendra," I said, "I am teaching you. You wanted to live like adults. Adults pay their debts." "We have nothing left," she said. He is not talking. He is just staring at the wall. "We need help, Dad. Please, just stop the seizure. We will do anything." "Anything?" I asked. "Yes, anything." "Leave him," I said. There was a silence, a long, heavy silence. "I cannot," she said. "He is my husband. He is having a hard time. I cannot abandon him. He tried to feed you to the wolves, Kendra," I reminded her. "He offered your fingers to pay his debt, and you still choose him." "He was scared," she said. "He didn't mean it." "Goodbye, Kendra," I said. "Wait," she cried. "He told me to go see a lawyer, a friend of his. He says maybe we can file for bankruptcy protection. He wants me to go right now. He says he needs to stay here and guard the house." I paused. A lawyer friend. Austin didn't have lawyer friends. He had accomplices, and he wanted her out of the house. "Go," I said. "Go see the lawyer, Kendra. Maybe he can help you." "Really?" "You think so? I think you should go," I said. "Right now. Take the car keys. Go." "Thank you, Daddy," she said. "I knew you still cared." She hung up. I looked at Javon. "Pull up the feed," I said. "Fast." Javon opened the laptop. We watched as Kendra grabbed her purse and ran out the door, eager to fix the mess, eager to be the savior. She drove away in her sedan, the only thing the deputies hadn't towed yet because it was a lease in her name. The house was quiet. Austin stood up. He walked to the window and watched her drive away. As soon as her taillights disappeared, his demeanor changed. The despair vanished, replaced by a frantic energy. He ran to the bedroom. He pulled a duffel bag from under the bed. He went to the wall safe hidden behind the painting in the closet. I watched as he punched in the code. The safe opened. It was not empty. Inside were stacks of cash. Not the money I had given Nikolai. This was something else. Emergency money. Stolen money. And jewelry. Kendra S. Grandmother S. Pearls. My mother S. Diamond brooch. Things Kendra had sworn were safe in a deposit box. Austin swept it all into the bag. He moved fast. He went to Kendra S.'s jewelry box on the dresser. He took everything that the deputies had missed, her gold earrings, her silver bracelets. He stripped the house of every last ounce of portable wealth. He did not leave a note. He did not look back. He ran down the stairs carrying the bag like a thief. He went out the back door, slipping through the broken fence into the alleyway. He was running. He was leaving her with the debt, with the shame, with the eviction notice. He was taking the last of her dignity and cashing it in for a bus ticket. I watched him go. I did not call the police. I did not stop him. Let him run, I said. Let her come home to an empty house and an empty safe. Let her see exactly what her loyalty bought her. Javon looked at me. That is cold, Uncle. It is the truth, Javon, I said. And the truth is the only thing that can save her now. Kendra would come back in an hour. She would find the house stripped. She would find her husband gone. And in that empty silence she would finally have to face the reality she had been avoiding for 5 years. She was alone, and the only man who had ever truly loved her was the one she had thrown in the trash. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the driveway as Kendra pulled her sedan up to the house. I watched on the feed as she sat in the car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel. She was building up the courage to face her husband, to be the savior she thought he needed. She got out and walked to the front door. It was unlocked. "Austin," she called out, stepping into the foyer. "Austin, I am back. The lawyer said he can see us tomorrow morning." Silence answered her. Not the peaceful silence of a happy home, but the hollow, echoing silence of a tomb. She walked into the living room. The orange stickers on the furniture seemed to glow in the twilight. She stepped over the broken glass from the coffee table. "Austin," she called again, louder this time. She went to the kitchen. Empty. She went to the backyard. Empty. A cold knot of fear began to tighten in her stomach. She ran up the stairs, her heels clicking frantically on the hardwood. She burst into the master bedroom. "Austin, are you in here?" The room was a mess. Drawers were pulled out and dumped on the floor. The closet door was wide open. She ran to it. She pushed aside her clothes, looking for the painting that hid the wall safe. The painting was on the floor. The safe door was hanging open like a gaping mouth. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She fell to her knees and peered inside. It was empty. The emergency cash was gone. The bonds were gone. Her grandmother's pearls were gone. She scrambled backward and ran to her dresser. Her jewelry box was overturned. Everything of value was gone. Her diamond earrings, her gold bracelets, even the silver locket I had given her for her 16th graduation. He took it all, she sobbed. He took everything. She sat in the middle of the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of her life. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Austin was not a victim. He was not a misunderstood genius. He was a thief, and he had left her behind to pay the bill. She looked around the room. She owned nothing. The house belonged to me. The furniture belonged to the court. Her jewelry belonged to a fence somewhere in the city. And she owed me $500,000. She was not just broke, she was drowning. And the only person who could throw her a lifeline was the man she had thrown in the trash. An hour later, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I knew it was her. I had watched her leave the house, driving like a maniac. I opened the door. Kendra stood there. She looked like a train wreck. Her hair was matted, her makeup was smeared down her cheeks, her clothes were wrinkled. She looked small. "Dad," she whispered. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked into the suite and looked around. She saw the luxury. She saw the peace. It must have felt like a slap in the face compared to the chaos she had just left. "He is gone," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "He took everything, Dad. The cash, the jewelry, he even took my laptop. I know I said. I watched him do it." "You watched him?" she asked, looking up at me. "You watched him rob me and you did nothing." "I watched a thief steal from a thief," I said. It seemed like poetic justice. She flinched. Then she did something I never thought I would see. She dropped to her knees. Right there on the plush carpet of the Ritz-Carlton, my proud, arrogant daughter fell to her knees and clasped her hands together. "Please, Dad," she begged. "Please help me. I have nothing. They are going to take my car. They are going to take my clothes. I have nowhere to go. You have to help me. You have to forgive the debt." I looked down at her. I remembered the little girl who used to ride on my shoulders. I remembered the teenager who rolled her eyes at my jokes. I remembered the woman who told me I was useless. "You want me to forgive $500,000, I asked. "Just like that. We are family," she cried. "You have money, Dad. You have so much money you can afford it. It is just numbers to you. But it is my life." "It is not just numbers, Kendra," I said. "It is my sweat. It is my blood. It is 40 years of waking up before dawn, and you want me to give it to you after you tried to steal it from me." "I did not try to steal it," she protested. We made mistakes, but it is your fault too." "My fault?" I asked, my eyebrows raising. "Yes," she shouted, standing up suddenly, her sadness turning to anger. "It is your fault. You pushed him. You cornered him with the debt. You brought the Russians into this. If you had just helped us in the beginning, if you had just given us the land, none of this would have happened. Austin would not have run away. We would be fine. You drove him away." I stared at her. The delusion was absolute. She was standing in the ruins of her life, holding a match and blaming me for the fire. I drove him away, I repeated quietly. Kendra, he tried to feed you to the mob. He offered them your fingers to save his own skin. And you think I am the villain because I bought the debt to save your life. He was scared, she insisted. He loves me. He would never have hurt me. He just needed time. And you took that away. You ruined our marriage. I walked over to the desk. I opened the drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I had prepared it with Thornton earlier that evening, anticipating this exact moment. You are right, Kendra, I said. You have nothing, and you are liable for the debt. I can garnish your wages for the rest of your life. I can take every penny you ever earn. I can make sure you never own a credit card or a car again. She trembled, looking at the paper in my hand. But I am willing to make a deal, I said. A deal, she asked, hope flickering in her eyes. I placed the paper on the table. This is a waiver, I explained. It states that you voluntarily relinquish all rights to my estate. You give up any claim to my inheritance. You give up any right to challenge my will. You walk away with nothing when I die. And in exchange, she asked. In exchange, I will pay off your credit card debt, I said. I will clear the $50,000 you racked up on my cards. I will give you a clean slate with the banks. You will still owe me the $500,000, but I will not enforce the judgment as long as you stay away from me. You can start over. You can get a job. You can live your life. But you get nothing from me ever again. She looked at the paper. She read the words. I, Kendra Miller, hereby waive all rights to the estate of Grady Whitfield. She looked at the pen. Then she looked at me. Her face twisted. The mask of the victim fell away, revealing the ugly, entitled rage beneath. You want me to sign away my inheritance? She hissed. You want me to sign away millions of dollars for 50 grand? It is a fair trade, I said. You get your freedom, I get my peace. No, she screamed. She grabbed the paper and ripped it in half. Then she ripped it again and again, throwing the confetti pieces at my face. I will never sign that, she spat. Never. You are old, Grady. You are 68 years old. You have a bad heart. You are not going to live forever. She stepped closer, her eyes burning with hate. I will wait, she whispered. I will wait for you to die. And when you do, I will take it all. I will take every penny. I will take this hotel suite. I will take your buildings. I will take it all, and I will laugh on your grave. You cannot cut me out, Dad. I am your only child. The law protects me. So keep your money for now. Enjoy it while you can, because the clock is ticking. She turned and marched to the door. She opened it and looked back one last time. You are dead to me, she said. Then she slammed the door, leaving me standing in the silence of the suite, surrounded by the torn pieces of my offer. I looked at the white scraps on the floor. She thought she had won a victory. She thought she had played a long game. She did not know that I had already rewritten my will 3 days ago. She did not know that the law only protects children who are not disinherited for cause, and she had just given me all the cause I needed. I picked up the phone. Thornton, I said, proceed with phase 2. And Thornton, go for the jugular. She wants to wait for me to die. Let us see if she can survive while I am still alive. The morning after Kendra tore up the waiver started with a frenzy of activity, but not the kind that leads to redemption. Javon sat at the desk in our hotel suite monitoring Kendra's digital footprint. He shook his head in disbelief as he turned the screen toward me. She was not grieving. She was not reflecting on her actions. She was plotting. She is at her office early, Javon said. She is drafting a press release. Look at this headline. The Dark Side of Success. How my father, Grady Whitfield, abused his power to destroy my family. I put on my glasses and leaned in. The text was a masterpiece of fiction. She painted herself as the victim of a controlling senile narcissist. She claimed I had manipulated Austin into debt. She claimed I had cut them off without warning, leaving them destitute. She was planning to use her position as the marketing director of Apex Global to launch a media campaign against me. She was going to use her company contacts, her press lists, and her reputation to destroy my name before I could enforce the legal judgments. She thinks her job is her fortress, I said, straightening up. She thinks that because she has a title and a corner office, she is untouchable. She believes that as long as she has her career, she can fight me. She is sending emails to her media contacts, Javon noted. She is scheduling interviews for tomorrow morning. She is going to burn you down, uncle. I walked to the window and looked out at the skyline. I saw the Apex Global Tower gleaming in the distance. It was a glass needle piercing the clouds. Kendra was proud of that building, She bragged about her view. She bragged about her six-figure salary. She thought she had made it there on her own merit, forgetting that I had introduced her to the CEO 5 years ago. She wants a war of words, I said. She wants to play the victim in the court of public opinion. But she forgets one thing. What is that? Javon asked. I do not fight with words, I said. I fight with assets. I picked up my phone and dialed Robert Thornton. Robert, I said. It is time for the shareholder meeting. Today, Thornton asked. But we just finalized the acquisition last night. The ink is barely dry. That makes it the perfect time, I said. Call the board. Tell them the new majority shareholder is invoking his right to call an emergency session. Tell them attendance is mandatory. And Robert, make sure the director of marketing is present. She has a presentation to make. I hung up. Kendra thought she was safe in her corporate castle. She did not know that for the past 6 months I had been quietly buying up Apex Global stock. It started as an investment, a way to support the company my daughter worked for. But as her behavior worsened, I kept buying. When the stock dipped last quarter, I bought more. And last night, while she was screaming at me in this very room, Thornton closed a deal with 2 other major investors to proxy their votes to me. I did not just own a piece of the company, I controlled it, 51%. Get dressed, Javon, I said. We are going to a meeting. We arrived at Apex Global at 10 o'clock. The lobby was buzzing with energy. Young professionals in expensive suits rushed past, tapping on phones, drinking lattes, oblivious to the guillotine hanging over their heads. I walked past security. My name was already on the list. The guard nodded respectfully and ushered us to the executive elevator. We rode up to the 50th floor in silence. My heart was not racing, my hands were not shaking. I felt a cold detachment. This was not a father disciplining a child. This was a surgeon cutting out a tumor. The boardroom was a cavernous space with a table long enough to land a plane on. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass, offering a panoramic view of the city. The board members were already seated, looking nervous. They whispered among themselves, wondering who this mysterious new investor was. Kendra sat at the far end of the table. She looked tired but defiant. She was typing furiously on her laptop, probably refining her hit piece on me. She did not look up when the door opened. She assumed it was just another suit. The CEO, a man named Sterling, stood up. He looked pale. He knew what was coming. Ladies and gentlemen, Sterling said, his voice trembling slightly. Thank you for coming on such short notice. As you know, the landscape of our ownership has shifted significantly in the last 24 hours. We are here to welcome the representative of Whitfield Holdings, the entity that now controls the majority voting block of Apex Global. Kendra stopped typing. Her head snapped up. Whitfield Holdings. The name hung in the air like smoke. She frowned. Confusion clouded her eyes. She knew the name Whitfield, obviously, but she could not connect the dots. She could not reconcile the idea of her father, the retired laborer, with the entity that just bought her company. Sterling looked at the door. Please welcome Mr. Grady Whitfield. I walked in. The sound of my footsteps on the plush carpet was the only noise in the room. I was wearing the same charcoal suit I had worn to the open house. I walked slowly, deliberately. I did not look at the board members. I looked straight at Kendra. Her face went slack. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked from me to Sterling, then back to me. The color drained from her skin, leaving her looking waxy and gray. No, she whispered. This is not possible. I reached the head of the table. Sterling hurriedly stepped aside, offering me the chair. The chairman's chair. I sat down. I placed my hands on the polished wood. I looked down the length of the table at my daughter. Good morning, everyone, I said. My voice was calm, authoritative. I apologize for the interruption to your morning, but we have some urgent housekeeping to address regarding the future of this company. Dad, Kendra stood up her chair, scraping loudly against the floor. What are you doing here? This is a closed meeting. You cannot just walk in here. Security. Sit down, Ms. Miller, I said. My voice was not loud, but it cracked like a whip. I am not sitting down, she shouted, looking around the room for support. Sterling? Why is he here? He is having a breakdown. He is stalking me. You need to call the police. Sterling looked at his shoes. Ms. Miller, please sit down. Mr. Whitfield is the new chairman of the board. He owns the company. Kendra froze. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. "He owns it," she stammered. "That is a lie. He is a construction worker. He does not have that kind of money." "I built this city, Ms. Miller," I said, "and while you were busy spending your salary on designer shoes and leasing cars you could not afford, I was investing. I was building wealth, real wealth, not the illusion of wealth you live in." I opened the folder in front of me. Now I continued, ignoring her shock. "We have a restructuring to discuss. I have been reviewing the company's performance and its personnel files. I have found some concerning issues in the marketing department." I pulled out a stack of papers. "I see here that the director of marketing has been using company resources for personal matters," I read. "I see emails drafted on company time using company letterhead that appear to be personal attacks against private citizens. I see expense reports for lunches that were actually personal family disputes." I looked up at her. "And most importantly, I see a violation of the morality clause in your contract." "Morality clause," Kendra whispered. "Yes," I said. "Apex Global prides itself on integrity. We cannot have executives who are involved in fraud pending litigation for debt evasion and public scandals involving the abuse of the elderly." I tossed a copy of the police report from the open house onto the table. It slid across the polished surface and stopped right in front of her. "This is a police report detailing an assault at a residence you illegally attempted to sell," I said. "And this is a court order for the seizure of your assets due to unpaid debts." The board members gasped. They looked at the papers, then at Kendra. Their expressions shifted from confusion to disgust. In the corporate world, financial ruin is a communicable disease. They recoiled from her. "This is personal." Kendra screamed, tears springing to her eyes. "You are doing this to hurt me. This has nothing to do with work." "It has everything to do with work," I said. "You represent this company, and right now you represent a liability. I cannot trust your judgment. If you would lie to your father, if you would steal from your family, what would you do to our shareholders? What would you do to our clients?" I closed the folder. "Kendra Miller," I said, "you are fired, effective immediately." "No," she shrieked. "You cannot do this. I built this department. I am the best thing this company has. You were an employee," I corrected her, "and now you are a trespasser." I signaled to the door. 2 security guards entered. They were not the polite lobby guards. They were large, serious men. "Please escort Ms. Miller to her office to collect her personal effects," I ordered. "She has 10 minutes. Anything she leaves behind will be mailed to her, and ensure she does not access any company computers. Her credentials have already been revoked." One of the guards stepped toward her. "Ms. Miller, if you would please come with us." Kendra looked at me. Her eyes were wild, desperate. She looked at Sterling, but he refused to meet her gaze. She looked at the other board members, but they were busy studying their notepads. She was alone. "Dad," she begged, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Please. This is my career. This is all I have left." "Austin took the money. You took the house. If you take my job, I have nothing. You should have thought about that before you wrote that press release," I said. "You wanted to tell the world a story, Kendra. Now you have a new story to tell. You can tell them how you lost everything because you forgot who you were." She stared at me for a long second. Then her face crumpled. She sobbed a raw, ugly sound that echoed in the silent boardroom. The guard took her arm gently but firmly. She did not fight. She let them lead her away. I watched her go. I watched my daughter, the woman who had once drawn me pictures in crayon, the woman who had looked at me with hero worship, be marched out of the room like a common criminal. It did not feel good. It felt like surgery, necessary, painful, and leaving a scar that would never heal. When the door closed, the room remained silent. I looked around the table. "Now," I said, my voice steady, "let us get back to business. We have a company to run, and I expect honesty, integrity, and hard work from everyone at this table. Is that understood?" There was a chorus of nods. Respectful, fearful nods. "Good," I said. Item 1. I went through the agenda. I led the meeting. I made decisions. I was the chairman. But inside, I was just a father mourning the child who was still alive but lost to me forever. Kendra was gone. Austin was gone. But the war was not over. Austin was still out there. He was a loose end. And loose ends have a way of unraveling everything if you do not tie them off. I did not know where he was, but I knew he would surface. A man like Austin cannot survive in the shadows for long. He needs the light. He needs the attention. He needs the next scam. and when he surfaced, I would be waiting. That evening I returned to the Ritz-Carlton. Javon was there waiting with a grim expression. "She is gone, Uncle," he said. "Security says she left the building an hour ago. She took a box of personal items. She was crying." "Good," I said, sitting down heavily. "But there is news about Austin," Javon said. I looked up. "What news?" "He triggered a silent alarm," Javon said. "Not a police alarm. A digital one. I put a tracer on his passport number, just in case. And it just pinged," Javon said. "At the Canadian border. Port Huron. He is trying to cross." "He is running," I said. "He is trying to leave the country." "Yes," Javon said, "but there is a problem. The system flagged him, not for the debt, for something else." "What else?" "The passport," Javon said. "It is fake. He is using a forged passport. He must have bought it with the cash he stole from the safe. But it is a bad forgery." "The border agents detained him. He is in custody?" I asked. "Yes," Javon said. "He is in a holding cell at the border. He gets one phone call." I stared at the phone on the desk. "He will not call Kendra," I said. "She has nothing. He will not call a lawyer. He cannot afford one." "Who will he call?" Javon asked. The phone rang. I looked at the screen. Unknown number. I smiled. A cold, tired smile. "He is calling the only person who has the power to save him," I said, "or the power to bury him." I picked up the phone. "Hello, Austin," I said. "Grady," his voice was panicked, breathless. "You have to help me. They have me. The feds. They say I am looking at 10 years for federal document fraud. You have to get me a lawyer. You have to bail me out." "Why would I do that, Austin?" I asked. "You stole from me. You stole from my daughter. You left her with nothing." "Because I have something you want," he hissed. "I have a trade. What could you possibly have that I want?" "I have dirt on Kendra," he said. "Real dirt, not just the spending. I am talking about felony fraud, Grady. I am talking about what really happened to your wife's life insurance policy." I froze. Esther S. policy. It had paid out 5 years ago. Kendra had handled the paperwork. She told me there were administrative fees, taxes, that the final amount was lower than expected. I had believed her. I was grieving. "What about Esther?" I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Get me a lawyer," Austin said. "Get me a deal. And I will give you the proof. I will show you how your precious daughter forged your signature and stole $50,000 from her own mother's death benefit to pay for our wedding." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Hold on, Austin," I said. "Do not say another word. I am coming." I hung up. "Get the car, Javon," I said. "We are going to the border." Austin was a rat. But even a rat can tell the truth when it is trapped. And if Kendra had stolen from Esther, if she had desecrated her mother's memory for a party, then God help her, because I would not. The drive to the detention center in Port Huron was a blur of gray highway and silence. Javon drove with his hands tight on the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on the road. I sat in the passenger seat watching the Michigan landscape fly by but seeing nothing. My mind was stuck on the phone call. Austin claiming he had dirt on Kendra, dirt involving my wife, dirt involving Esther. We arrived at the federal holding facility just as the sky was turning the color of a bruise. It was a squat, ugly building surrounded by chain-link fences and razor wire. It looked like a place where hope went to die. I walked inside, my cane tapping a hollow rhythm on the linoleum floor. I showed my ID. I spoke to the agent in charge. He knew who I was. My name still carried weight, even this far from Chicago. They led me to a small interview room. It smelled of stale coffee and fear. There was a metal table bolted to the floor and 2 metal chairs. Austin was sitting in one of them. He looked small. The arrogance that had defined him for 5 years was gone, stripped away by the reality of federal handcuffs. He was wearing his street clothes, but they were wrinkled and stained. His face was pale and unshaven. When he saw me, he tried to stand up, but the cuffs chained to the table stopped him with a sharp clank. "Grady," he breathed. "You came. Thank God. You have to get me out of here. It is a mistake. The passport guy told me it was high quality. I did not know." I sat down opposite him. I placed my hands on the cold metal table. I looked at him. I did not see a son-in-law. I saw a desperate, drowning man who would pull anyone down with him just to catch a breath. "You are in federal custody, Austin," I said, my voice flat. "You tried to cross an international border with forged documents. That is not a mistake. That is a felony. And honestly, it is the least of your problems. He started to cry. It was a pathetic, sniveling sound. I called Kendra, he sobbed. I used my one phone call to call my wife. I told her I was in trouble. I told her I needed help. Do you know what she did? I waited. She laughed. Austin whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. She laughed at me, Grady. She said I was an idiot for getting caught. She said she had no money to help me even if she wanted to. She said I was on my own. Then she hung up. She hung up on her husband while I was in a cage. I felt a flicker of satisfaction, but it was cold comfort. Kendra was lashing out because she was cornered just like him. They were two scorpions in a bottle stinging each other to death. She is broke, Austin, I reminded him. Because you stole everything she had. You cannot expect loyalty from a woman you robbed. I did not rob her, he protested, weak and unconvincing. I was securing our assets. I was going to send for her once I got settled in Toronto. Lies, I said. You were running. But I did not drive 2 hours to hear you make excuses. You said you had information. You said you had a trade. Austin wiped his nose on his sleeve. He leaned forward, the chains rattling. I need a lawyer, he said. A real lawyer, not a public defender. I need someone who can cut a deal with the U.S. attorney. I need you to pay for it. I leaned back. You want me to pay for your defense, after everything? If you want to know the truth about Esther, you will do it, Austin said. His eyes hardened. He knew he had leverage. He knew Esther was my weak point. Talk, I said. If the information is worth it, I will hire the best defense attorney in the state. If you are lying, I will stand up, walk out that door, and let you rot here for 10 years. Austin swallowed hard. He looked at the mirror on the wall, knowing we were being watched, but he did not care. He was desperate. 5 years ago, he began, his voice shaking. The wedding. You remember the wedding, right? The plaza. The imported flowers. The 7-course meal. It cost $80,000. I remember, I said. I paid for half of it. Austin shook his head. You paid for half. But we did not have the other half. I was just starting out. I had no clients. Kendra had maxed out her cards. We were $40,000 short 2 weeks before the date. The venue was going to cancel. Kendra was hysterical. She said she could not face the humiliation. She said it had to be perfect. I felt a cold dread settling in my stomach. Go on, I said. Esther was in the hospital, Austin said softly. She had been in that coma for 2 weeks. The doctors said she was stable but unresponsive. They said she could wake up or she could stay like that for months. There was no way to know. I closed my eyes. I remembered those days. The beeping of the monitors, the smell of antiseptic. Sitting by her bed, holding her hand, praying for a miracle. Kendra knew about the life insurance policy, Austin continued. She knew the payout was immediate upon death. She knew it was enough to cover the wedding and the honeymoon and the down payment on the house. She did the math, Grady. She realized that her mother was worth more dead than alive. My hands clenched into fists on the table. My knuckles turned white. What are you saying, Austin? Say it clearly. The doctors did not suggest pulling the plug, Austin whispered. Kendra did. She went to the hospital administrator. She produced a document, a living will. It stated that in the event of a vegetative state, Esther did not want extraordinary measures. It stated that she wanted to be let go. Esther did not have a living will. I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. We talked about it, but we never signed one. She believed in miracles. She would never have given up. I know, Austin said. That is the point. Kendra forged it. She spent 3 nights practicing Esther's signature. She typed it up on your home computer. She backdated it. She forged your signature as the witness. The room spun. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My daughter. My flesh and blood. She had forged a document to end her mother's life. Not to end her suffering, not out of mercy, but for money, for a party, for a wedding dress and a cake. I did not want to believe it. My mind tried to reject it, but the pieces fit. I remembered how quickly the hospital attitude had changed, how the administrator had come to me with the paperwork saying it was Esther's wish. I had been so confused, so grief-stricken, I had just nodded. I had let them turn off the machines because I thought it was what she wanted. I killed her, I whispered. I let them kill her. No, Austin said. Kendra killed her. She handed over the paper. She pushed the doctors. She cried fake tears and said she just wanted her mother to be at peace. And 2 weeks later, when the check cleared, she bought the Vera Wang dress. I stood up. The chair screeched against the floor, loud and harsh. I felt sick. physically ill. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear this building down brick by brick. You knew, I said, looking down at him. You knew this for 5 years, and you said nothing. You ate at my table. You lived in my house, and you knew. I was scared, Austin said, shrinking back. She said she would pin it on me if I talked. She said we were in it together. And I needed the money too, Grady. I am sorry. Sorry, I roared. I slammed my fist onto the table. The sound was like a gunshot. The guard outside the door jumped but did not come in. Sorry does not bring my wife back. Sorry does not erase 5 years of lies. I grabbed Austin by the collar of his shirt. He yelped. You are going to tell this to the police. I hissed, my face inches from his. You are going to tell them everything. You are going to tell them about the forgery. You are going to tell them about the insurance. You are going to testify against her. Yes, Austin cried. Yes, I will do it. Just get me a lawyer. Please. I do not want to go down for this alone. I let him go. He slumped back into the chair, gasping for air. I walked to the door. I felt heavy old, carrying a burden no father should ever have to carry. I had come here to bury a son-in-law. Now I had to bury a daughter. You will get your lawyer, Austin, I said without turning around. I will hire the best shark money can buy, not to save you, but to make sure your testimony is bulletproof. I want every word you say to nail her coffin shut. I walked out of the interview room. I walked past the guards. I walked out into the cold Michigan air. Javon was waiting by the car. He saw my face and he knew. He did not ask questions. He just opened the door. I got in. I sat in the dark. I thought about Esther. I thought about her smile. I thought about the last time I held her hand. I had whispered to her that it was okay to go. I had told her to rest. I had lied to her because my daughter had lied to me. Drive, I said to Javon. My voice was broken. Glass in a grinder. Where to, Uncle? To the cemetery, I said. I need to apologize to my wife. And then we are going to find Kendra, and God have mercy on her soul because I have none left. The ride back was silent. The rage was gone, replaced by a cold, vast emptiness. I was not a father anymore. I was an executioner. And the condemned woman was waiting in Chicago, thinking she had gotten away with murder. She was wrong. She had made one fatal mistake. She had left a witness alive. And she had underestimated how much a man can hate when his love has been perverted into a weapon. Austin had given me the gun. Now all I had to do was pull the trigger. I sat on a single metal folding chair in the center of the living room of the house in Naperville. The room was cavernous without the furniture. The orange stickers were gone along with the sofas and the television. The only thing remaining was the dust dancing in the beams of afternoon light and the heavy silence of a home that had never truly been a home. I held my phone in my hand. My thumb hovered over the play button of a voice memo. I was waiting for the ghost of my daughter to arrive. I had called her an hour ago. I kept my voice low and tired. I told her to come to the house. I told her we needed to settle things. I let her believe that the fight had drained me, that I was ready to capitulate. It was a lie, but it was the only bait she would take. I heard the crunch of tires on the driveway. A car door slammed. Then the front door opened. Kendra walked in. She was wearing a trench coat over wrinkled clothes, trying to maintain an air of dignity she no longer possessed. She looked around the empty room, her eyes landing on me, sitting alone in the center. A slow smile spread across her face. It was a smile of triumph. She thought she had won. She thought I was a lonely old man sitting in an empty house, realizing he had made a mistake. She walked toward me, her heels clicking loudly on the hardwood floor, echoing off the bare walls. I knew you would call, she said, her voice dripping with condensation. I told Austin you would not last a week without us. You need family, Dad. You need someone to look after you. You are too old to be fighting these wars. She stopped a few feet away from me, looking down with a mixture of pity and greed. So what is the offer, she asked. Are you giving us the land back? Are you paying off the debts? If you apologize and fix this, I might consider letting you see your grandchildren one day, if I ever have any. I looked up at her. I saw her mother's eyes. I saw my own chin. But inside, there was nothing of us. There was only a void where a soul should be. Sit down, Kendra, I said, pointing to the floor. There were no other chairs. I am not sitting on the floor, she scoffed. Just tell me what you are going to give me so I can get out of here. This place smells like failure. You are going to want to sit, I said, my voice flat and hard. I am fine standing, she said, crossing her arms. Suit yourself, I said. I lifted the phone. I turned the volume all the way up. What is that? She asked, frowning. This is the end of the line, Kendra, I said. I pressed play. Austin's voice filled the empty living room, distorted slightly by the recording, but unmistakable. It was the sound of a man confessing his sins to save his skin. Kendra knew about the life insurance policy. She knew the payout was immediate upon death. She did the math, Grady. She realized that her mother was worth more dead than alive. Kendra's face went pale. Her arms dropped to her sides. The doctors did not suggest pulling the plug. Kendra did. She went to the hospital administrator. She produced a document, a living will. It stated that in the event of a vegetative state, Esther did not want extraordinary measures. Kendra took a step back, shaking her head. No, she whispered. Turn it off. Esther did not have a living will. We talked about it, but we never signed one. Kendra forged it. She spent 3 nights practicing Esther's signature. She typed it up on your home computer. She backdated it. Lies. Kendra screamed, covering her ears. That is a lie. Austin is a liar. She handed over the paper. She pushed the doctors. She cried fake tears and said she just wanted her mother to be at peace. And 2 weeks later, when the check cleared, she bought the Vera Wang dress. I pressed stop. The silence that followed was heavier than the one before. It was the silence of a grave. Kendra stood there trembling. Her arrogance was gone. Her triumph was gone. She looked like a cornered animal. She looked at me, and for the first time in her life, she saw hate in my eyes. Not anger, not disappointment. Hate. You killed her, I said. My voice was a whisper, but it carried across the room like a scream. You killed my wife for a wedding dress. It was not like that, Kendra sobbed, tears streaming down her face. Mom was not waking up. The doctor said she might never wake up. I just wanted to let her go. Do not lie to me, I roared, standing up and kicking the chair back. The metal clattered loudly against the floor. You forged her signature. You committed fraud. You ended her life because you wanted a party. You wanted champagne and flowers, and you paid for them with your mother's breath. I did it for us, she cried. I wanted the wedding to be perfect. I wanted you to be proud. Proud, I asked, incredulous. You think I would be proud of a murderer? You think I would be proud of a daughter who sold her mother for a centerpiece? I walked toward her. She shrank back, retreating until her back hit the wall. Austin told the feds everything I said. He gave a sworn statement. He gave them the details of the forgery. He gave them the dates. He is turning state's evidence against you, Kendra. The FBI is building a case. Insurance fraud, forgery, homicide. Kendra slid down the wall, collapsing onto the floor. She buried her face in her hands and wailed. It was the sound of a child who realizes the dark has finally come to eat them. Please, Dad, she begged, looking up at me through her fingers. I am scared. I do not want to go to jail. Please help me. You fix everything. You always fix everything. I looked down at her. I saw the monster she had become. I saw the greed that had eaten her alive. And I knew that I could not fix this. I could not fix her. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out a manila envelope. I tossed it onto the floor in front of her. Inside were 2 documents. One was a plane ticket, one way, to a small town in Arizona where I had a cousin who ran a diner. The other was a legal document drawn up by Thornton. You have 2 choices, Kendra, I said. My voice was cold, devoid of fatherly warmth. Choice 1, I hand that recording and Austin S. testimony to the district attorney tomorrow morning. You will be arrested. You will be charged. You will go to trial. And with this evidence, you will go to prison for at least 10 years. You will be a convicted felon. You will lose everything. She sobbed louder, rocking back and forth. Choice 2, I continued. You pick up that pen. You sign that document. It is a formal renunciation of the name Whitfield. It is a legal document stating you have no claim to me, my money, or my legacy. You are disowning me, Kendra. Not the other way around. You sign it and you get on that plane tonight. You leave Chicago. You never come back. You never contact me again. If you do, I go to the police. She looked at the envelope. She looked at the ticket. Arizona, she whispered. I do not know anyone in Arizona. You have a job waiting, I said. My cousin needs a dishwasher. It pays minimum wage. It is honest work. Something you have never done in your life. A dishwasher. She gasped. I am a marketing director. You are a criminal, I corrected her. And you are lucky I am giving you a way out. Why? she asked, wiping her nose. "Why are you letting me go, after what I did?" "Because you are Esther's daughter," I said, my voice breaking for the first time, "and I cannot bear the thought of her daughter rotting in a cage, even if she put her there." I turned my back on her. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. I could not look at her anymore. "Sign it," I said, "or I call the police right now." I heard the rustle of paper. I heard the click of the pen. I heard the scratch of ink on the page. "It is done," she whispered. I turned around. She was holding the paper out to me. Her hand was shaking. She looked broken. "Take the ticket," I said. "The Uber is waiting outside. It will take you to O'Hare. Do not miss the flight." She stood up. She picked up the ticket. She looked at me one last time. She opened her mouth to speak, to say something. Maybe sorry, maybe goodbye. "Get out," I said. She turned and ran. She ran out of the empty house. She ran out of my life. I heard the front door slam. I heard the car drive away. I was alone. I picked up the document she had signed. "I, Kendra Miller, hereby renounce all ties." I folded it and put it in my pocket. I looked around the empty room. It was over. The lies were over. The betrayal was over. I walked to the fireplace. I put my hand on the stone where the hidden safe had been. I thought of Esther. I thought of the woman who had loved me when I had nothing. "I am sorry, Essie," I whispered to the dust. I tried. I really tried. I walked out of the house. I locked the door with the key I had kept all along. I walked down the driveway past the spot where my clothes had been thrown in the trash. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and bruise. I got into my car. To the office, I told the driver, "I have a foundation to start. I was done building houses for ungrateful children. It was time to build something that would actually make the world a better place. It was time to honor Esther the right way." The gavel came down with a sound like a cracking bone echoing through the federal courtroom. 15 years. That was the sentence. Austin Miller collapsed into his chair, his face buried in his hands, weeping like the child he had always been inside. The judge was not moved by his tears. The judge saw the trail of ruined lives, the forged documents, the stolen identities, and the sheer magnitude of the greed. Austin had tried to trade secrets for freedom, but his crimes were too vast and his character too hollow to warrant mercy. He was led away in shackles, the orange jumpsuit clashing violently with the memory of the designer suits he used to wear. He looked at me one last time as he passed the gallery. I saw fear in his eyes. He was going to a place where his smooth talking and fake stock tips would get him nothing but pain. I did not smile. I did not wave. I just watched him disappear through the side door, knowing that the man who had tried to bury me was now buried himself. Kendra did not attend the sentencing. She was already gone. Javon had driven to the bus station that morning not to say goodbye, but to verify. He watched from his car as my daughter stood on the cracked pavement of the Greyhound terminal. She had one suitcase. It was a small carry on the kind she used to take for weekend spa trips. Now it held everything she owned in the world. She wore jeans and a heavy coat her designer wardrobe sold off to pay for the ticket and a few weeks of rent in Arizona. She looked older. The stress of the last month had carved lines into her face that no expensive cream could erase. She looked at her phone one last time, probably debating whether to call me, whether to try one last manipulation. Then she dropped the phone into a trash can. It was a symbolic death. She was leaving Kendra Miller behind. She boarded the bus without looking back. As the heavy vehicle pulled away, spewing diesel fumes into the Chicago air, I felt a severing in my chest. It was the final cut of the umbilical cord. I had lost a daughter, but I had regained my life. The house in Naperville was the next to go. I walked through it one last time with a real estate agent. The rooms were empty, the walls were bare. The fireplace where I had hidden the deed stared back at me like a blank eye. I remembered painting the nursery blue for a grandchild that never came. I remembered building the deck where we had hosted barbecues. Every corner held a ghost, every shadow whispered a lie. I did not want it anymore. I did not want the rental income. I did not want the equity. I wanted it gone. Sell it, I told the agent. Today. But Mr. Whitfield, the market is soft, she argued. If we wait a few months, we could get 20% more. I do not care about the market, I said. Sell it to the first family that makes an offer. Sell it cheap. Just get it off my books. I do not want to own the stage where this tragedy was performed. It sold in 3 days. A young couple bought it. They had a baby on the way and eyes full of hope. I hoped the house would treat them better than it had treated me. I took the check from the sale. It was a substantial amount. I added it to the money I had recovered from Austin S. seizure. I sat down with Thornton and we drafted the paperwork for a new legacy, the Esther Whitfield Foundation. It was not a vanity project. It was a fortress. We leased a building in the city. We hired social workers, lawyers, and investigators. The mission was simple: to protect the elderly from financial and emotional abuse, to provide a shield for those who, like me, had been blinded by love and robbed by family. I wanted to be the person I needed when I was standing in the rain with my clothes in a trash bag. I spent my days at the foundation. I reviewed cases. I spoke to men and women who had lost their homes, their pensions, and their dignity to greedy children. I looked them in the eye and told them they were not stupid. I told them they were not useless. I told them that love is a blindfold that sometimes needs to be ripped off. We recovered assets. We put restraining orders in place. We fought back. For the first time in years, I felt useful. I was building again, not with bricks and mortar, but with justice and compassion. 6 months passed. The wounds began to scar over. The silence in my hotel suite became less lonely and more peaceful. I moved out of the Ritz and bought a condo in the city. It was smaller, manageable just for me. It had a view of the lake. I liked the water. It was constant. It was honest. One evening I attended a charity gala. It was a black tie event to raise money for legal aid. I was a major donor now, a respected figure in the philanthropic community. People shook my hand. They called me Mr. Whitfield with genuine respect, but I still felt like an outsider in a tuxedo. I preferred my work boots. I was standing near the bar nursing a sparkling water watching the crowd when a voice cut through the noise. "Grady Whitfield." "Is that really you?" I turned around. Standing there was a woman I had not seen in 50 years, Viola Jenkins. We had gone to high school together on the South Side. She had been the smartest girl in AP English, the one who read poetry while the rest of us were playing dice. She looked beautiful. Her hair was silver braided into an elegant crown. Her skin was smooth, the color of deep mahogany. She wore a simple blue dress that outshone the sequined gowns around her. Her eyes were the same, bright, intelligent kind. Viola. I said, a smile breaking across my face that felt rusty from disuse. "I have not seen you since graduation." She laughed, a warm sound that made me feel 18 again. "Life happens, Grady. I heard about your wife. I am so sorry. Esther was a gem." "Thank you," I said. "And I heard you became a professor." "Literature, right. Retired now," she said. "I spend my time volunteering, trying to keep these young folks out of trouble. And I heard about your foundation. What you are doing, Grady, it is important work. It is God's work." We talked. We talked for an hour, ignoring the speeches and the waiters with trays of champagne. We talked about the old neighborhood. We talked about how the city had changed. We talked about the books we were reading. For the first time in a long time, I was not talking about lawsuits or debts or betrayal. I was just talking to a friend. I looked at her and I saw a reflection of the man I used to be before the money, before the construction empire, before the heartbreak. I saw Grady, the boy who had dreams. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" Viola asked as the event wound down. "Real coffee. Not this hotel swill. I know a place that makes a bean pie just like the ones we used to get on 47th Street. "I would like that very much," I said. She touched my arm gently. It was a small gesture, but it sent a warmth through me that chased away the last of the chill from that rainy night in Naperville. "Call me," she said, handing me a card. I watched her walk away. She walked with grace. She walked with dignity. I looked at the card in my hand. Viola Jenkins. I realized then that my life was not over. The tragedy with Kendra was a chapter, a terrible, painful chapter, but it was not the whole book. There were still pages left to write. There was still joy to be found. I walked out of the gala and into the night. The air was cool and fresh. I took a deep breath. I was Grady Whitfield. I had survived the fire. I had survived the storm. And now, for the first time in a long time, I was ready to see what the sunrise looked like. But the past has a way of knocking on the door just when you think you have changed the locks. 3 years later, I would find out that even a severed limb can still phantom itch. And sometimes the people you banish come back not to fight, but to remind you why you let them go in the first place. 3 years is a long time. It is enough time for concrete to cure completely. It is enough time for a sapling to take root and stand on its own against the wind. And it is enough time for a man to rebuild a life that he thought was over. The ballroom at the Palmer House Hilton was glowing with golden light. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks. The air smelled of expensive perfume and success. Tonight was not about construction. It was not about profit margins or eviction notices. It was about the Esther Whitfield Foundation. I stood at the podium looking out at 500 faces. The governor was there, the mayor was there, but the only face that mattered to me was sitting at table 1 wearing a silver gown that made her look like royalty. Viola Jenkins. She smiled at me and raised her glass. Her eyes were warm and steady, the kind of eyes that had seen everything and still chose to look at the world with kindness. "Ladies and gentlemen," the presenter said, his voice booming over the speakers. "For his tireless dedication to protecting the vulnerable and for turning personal tragedy into public salvation, it is my honor to present the Chicago Philanthropist of the Year Award to Mr. Grady Whitfield." The applause was thunderous. People stood up. They clapped for the man in the tuxedo. They clapped for the success story. They did not know the man in the work boots who had cried in a hotel room 3 years ago. They did not know the price I had paid for this heavy crystal trophy. I walked to the microphone. My hand was steady. I gave my speech. I talked about Esther. I talked about the dignity of aging. I talked about how a society is measured by how it treats its elders. I did not mention Kendra. I did not mention Austin. They were ghosts, ghosts that no longer haunted this building. After the ceremony, the room dissolved into music and laughter. I walked off the stage feeling the weight of the award in my hands. Viola was waiting for me. She took my arm. "You did good, Grady," she said. "Esther would be proud." "I think she would," I said. "But I am more happy that you are proud." Viola squeezed my arm. We were happy. It was a quiet, mature happiness, the kind that does not need drama or noise. We lived in my condo by the lake. We read books. We gardened. We traveled to places I had only seen in magazines. I was 71 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was living for myself. Then Stone appeared. He was still my head of security, but now he ran the security for the entire foundation. He was wearing a tuxedo, but he still looked like he could break a wall with his forehead. He leaned in close, his face serious. "Mr. Whitfield, I am sorry to disturb you," Stone whispered, "but we have a situation at the service entrance." "A situation?" I asked. "Is it the press?" "No, Sir," Stone said. "It is a woman. She is claiming to be your daughter. She refuses to leave. She says it is a medical emergency." The world stopped spinning for a second. The music faded into a dull buzz. "Kendra." I looked at Viola. She heard him. She looked at me with concern. "Do you want me to come with you?" she asked. "No," I said, placing the trophy on the table. "This is something I have to do alone." I followed Stone through the kitchen. We walked past waiters carrying trays of filet mignon, past chefs shouting orders. The air got hotter than colder as we reached the loading dock. Stone opened the heavy steel door. The alleyway was dark, smelling of wet pavement and exhaust. A single security light buzzed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow. Kendra was standing near the dumpsters. I almost did not recognize her. The woman who used to spend $500 on a haircut was gone. In her place was a wraith. She was thin, skeletal even. Her hair was dull and pulled back in a messy knot. She wore a coat that was 2 sizes too big and stained at the hem. Her face was lined with hardship, deep grooves etched around her mouth and eyes. She looked 20 years older than she was. But she was not alone. Clutched against her chest, wrapped in a gray blanket, was a baby. I stopped. My breath caught in my throat. Kendra looked up. Her eyes were hollow, dark pits of exhaustion. When she saw me, she did not straighten up. She did not try to look proud. She slumped against the brick wall as if my presence was the only thing keeping her upright. "Dad," she croaked. Her voice was raspy, like she hadn't used it in days. I stood 10 feet away. I did not move closer. "Kendra," I said. She looked down at the bundle in her arms. The baby shifted and let out a weak cry. I could see a small hand reaching out. The skin was light brown. A mix. "His name is Micah," she whispered. He is 6 months old. I looked at the child, my grandchild, a life I did not know existed, a life born into the wreckage I had left behind. Where is the father? I asked. Gone, she said, staring at the ground. He was a guy I met in Arizona. He worked at the diner. He left when I got pregnant. Austin is in prison. I have nobody, Dad. Nobody. She looked at me then, and for the first time I saw the absolute bottom of the well. There was no manipulation left, no scheming, just hunger. I came back on a bus, she said. It took 3 days. I used the last of my money for the ticket. We haven't eaten since yesterday. The shelter is full. They told me to come back tomorrow. But he needs milk, Dad. He is hungry. She took a step forward, holding out a trembling hand. I just need $100, she begged. Just $100. For formula. For diapers. Maybe a motel room for one night. Please, Dad, look at him. He is your blood. I looked at the baby. He was innocent. He had done nothing wrong. He was just a victim of his mother's choices, just like I had been. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every instinct I had as a father screamed at me to pull out my wallet, to give her everything, to take the baby, to bring them into the warmth. But then I looked at Kendra. I saw the woman who had forged her mother's signature to kill her. I saw the woman who had stood by while her husband tried to destroy me. I saw the woman who had chosen greed over love time and time again. If I gave her money now, it would disappear. If I took her in, she would poison my life again. She was a black hole. And I had spent 3 years clawing my way out of her event horizon. I cannot give you money, Kendra, I said. My voice was steady, but it felt like swallowing glass. What? She gasped. But he is a baby. He is starving. You are rich. You just won an award. You are the philanthropist of the year. I am, I said. And philanthropists do not solve problems by throwing cash at addicts or criminals. We solve problems with systems. I turned to Stone. Call Sarah at the intake center, I ordered. Tell her we have a priority admission. Mother and child. Level 1 crisis. Stone nodded, pulling out his phone. Kendra stared at me, her mouth open. You are sending me to a shelter. Your own daughter. I am sending you to the best facility in the city, I said. It is clean. It is safe. They have doctors. They have food. They will give you clothes. They will help you find a job. They will help you file for assistance. I do not want charity, she hissed, the old anger flaring up for a second. I want my father. I want to come home. You burned that home down. Kendra, I said. You burned it down to the ground, Stone stepped forward. The van is on its way, Mrs. Miller. They will be here in 5 minutes. Kendra looked at Stone, then back at me. She hugged the baby tighter. Dad, please. Just give me the cash. I will go away. I promise. No, I said. No cash. Not 1 dime. If you want help, you take the ride. You go to the center. You follow the rules. You get clean. You work your way up, just like everyone else. She started to cry. It was a defeated sound. He is your grandson, she sobbed. Do you not want to hold him? I looked at the small face peeking out of the blanket. He had Esther's nose. The pain of it was sharp and physical. No, I said, I do not. Because if I hold him, I might not be able to let him go. And he needs a mother, Kendra. He needs you to be a mother, not a leech. I took a step back. The van pulled into the alley. It was a white van with the logo of the Esther Whitfield Foundation on the side. 2 social workers stepped out, women with kind faces and strong arms. Go with them, I said. They will take care of you. Kendra looked at the van. She looked at the dark alley. She looked at me standing in my tuxedo in the circle of light. You are cruel, she whispered. You are a cruel old man. I nodded slowly. Maybe I am, but I am alive. And because of me, that baby will be alive tomorrow too. The social workers gently guided her toward the van. She did not fight them. She was too tired. She got in. The door slid shut. I watched the taillights disappear around the corner. Stone stood beside me. Did I do the right thing, Stone? I asked the question, hanging in the cold air. You saved the child, Mr. Whitfield, Stone said, and you gave her a chance. That is more than she gave you. I nodded. I turned around and walked back toward the heavy steel door. I could hear the music from the ballroom spilling out into the kitchen. It sounded like life. It sounded like a future. I stopped at the threshold. I thought about the 2 words I had written on that sticky note 3 years ago. Check deed. I had reclaimed my property. I had reclaimed my name. And tonight, I had reclaimed my soul. I walked through the kitchen. I adjusted my tie. I walked back into the ballroom. Viola was waiting for me. She saw my face. She saw the shadow that had passed over me. She stood up and took my hand. "Is it done?" she asked. "It is done," I said. I looked at the crowd. I looked at the lights. I looked at the woman I loved. Bury the dead, I thought. Feed the living, and never look back. I squeezed Viola's hand. "Let us dance," I said. We walked onto the floor. The band was playing a slow song. I held her close. We moved together, swaying to the rhythm of a life that was finally truly mine. The past was a ghost in an alleyway, but here in the light there was only the music, and for the first time in a long time, the music was sweet. Life taught me that the hardest walls to build aren't made of brick and mortar, but of self-respect. For years, I mistook enabling for love, thinking my sacrifice would buy loyalty. It didn't. I learned that you cannot save someone who is determined to drown, and you certainly shouldn't set yourself on fire to keep them warm. True family isn't defined by blood, but by honor, mutual respect, and genuine care. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is close the door not out of hate, but to protect the peace you've fought so hard to build. If you believe that respect is non-negotiable, even with family, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of justice and redemption.